Hey there, YouTube friends. Hey there, YouTube friends. Good morning. Happy Friday, October 17th. It's my baby, my youngest daughter's birthday this morning. I'm not too live this morning. Anyway, excuse me. Out in the truck this morning, as you can see, and have an important meeting. Excuse my voice. Have an important meeting to go to for the S.A.I.D program. I'm going to see how much I can record of it. And I'm going to take you along with me. Alrighty. Let's get going because it's already after 9 o'clock. Oh, it's... Get here. 8:55. 8:56. And I should have been out the door already. I have no idea where I'm going to park because there's no parking downtown. And this thing is happening at the Knox Metropolitan Church, probably in the basement. So anyway, I'm going to try and take you along. Okay, let's go. Got no heat in here. Put the heat on. So if it gets a little, oops, sorry for that. Gets a little noisy, it's the heat. I'll put a little heat in this truck. Oh. Okay. Okay, you don't want to join me on the journey. You just want to join me on the pothole. Okay. See you when I get. Okay. I believe I'm going to have a tough time finding a parking spot, so let's go see if we can find a parking spot. I see how much of this meeting. It's an all-day meeting. It's from 9:30 to approximately 3:30. There should be 6 speakers, 3 speakers in the morning, 3 speakers in the afternoon. There's lunch provided, and I'm going to see how much I get out of this. I'm hoping I get a lot out of it. So, anyway, let's go find a parking spot. Okay, so I got my new phone holder, and try and see if I can use it later. Oh, it fell again. I guess that phone holder would work right now, wouldn't it? There you go. Got you resting up against my coffee cup. Okay. Nine o'clock, I'm guessing. Okay, shut the heat off so it doesn't interfere. There. Oh. I don't like the way you're sitting. There you go, it's a little bit better. There. Okay, so I'm going down 13th Avenue. And this is, I think, hold on a second, can't see the streets of it. Hamilton? We're by the old bus station. I know you can't see it, but I should have just walked to this frickin' meeting. Spent a half hour down looking for a parking spot. I still have to park 10 blocks away. Oh, chimney crickets. Patiently walking back towards where I gotta go. Not too happy this morning, and I'm late for this meeting. Nothing I can do about it. No freaking parking in this city. Not downtown anyway. Not convenient parking. I'm totally miffed. I try not to let it ruin my day though. Well, at least the good thing is I'm getting my steps in. I think I had over 1,200 steps already this morning by the time 8 o'clock rolled around. 1,286. I know where I'm at right now. Yes, might be good for the health, but I'm ticked because I'm late for this meeting. Anyway, see you when we get there. Well, I missed 20 minutes of this thing. It's 9:50, and I'm still walking. I'm walking behind the old bus terminal, and I'm coming up to the old power building. I'll keep walking until I get there. See you in a bit.
Thank everybody for coming out today. We are expecting more people to be showing up through the morning. We were told that 9:30 wasn't going to work for some folks, but they expected to be here later as the day goes on. So, but one of the reasons that we're holding this forum today is for many years we've done something on October 17th, the International Day for the Eradication of Poverty. But it's a long time since we've had the opportunity to bring folks together with lived experience in poverty, to talk about issues and talk about how we can work together moving forward to create change. In the late 1990s, we were part of a series of poor people's conferences across Western Canada, including a major one that was hosted in Regina. Through the next decade, the 2000s, we had several events that brought together both people living in poverty and representatives of groups dealing with poverty issues to talk about both what the problems were, but also what the solutions were. And it was really out of that process that the Anti-Poverty Ministry developed its proposals for change that we've lobbied government on. And in the past, the way that we've done that is that we've first taken the issues that we've received out of the consultation process, moved proposals through our own board, which ultimately went to the local presbytery, or what was Wascana Presbytery, and then on to Saskatchewan Conference of the United Church. So that most of the positions that we've taken have been not just the Anti-Poverty Ministry's positions, but ultimately became the positions of Saskatchewan Conference. Right now, we've had a change in the structure of the United Church, and the next level is Living Skies Region, our regional council, which also represents, it's basically the same borders. It represents the United Church in the province of Saskatchewan. Now, as I said, we've always done something for October 17th, but because I want to give thanks to the Regina Circle of the Writing Relations Committee for offering a grant. They asked us if what we might look at using a grant for, and we suggested pulling people together on October 17th. So this likely wouldn't have happened now without their support of the event, and I just want to acknowledge their support for today. But October 17th has always been an important day because it's a day that we remember commitments that not only Canada, but Saskatchewan and indeed all the provinces have made under international law towards the eradication of poverty. And we believe that when governments set minimum wages and income security benefits too low, when they don't have quality and affordable housing and childcare, that really what they're doing is legislating poverty. And we live in a circumstance of deep legislated poverty in the province. In 1976, which is now going on 50 years ago today, Canada did sign on to the UN Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. And I can tell you that I learned all about this from Bonnie Morton, who's here this morning, my longtime co-worker who retired with the Anti-Poverty Ministry at the end of 2021. But she had a lot of learnings from both her personal experience in poverty, but also from Dr. Yusuf Klai at the School of Human Justice, who had great expertise in the area of covenants that Canada, with the commitment and approval of all the provinces, had signed on to. And so we've taken those covenants very seriously, and in particular, the 1976 commitment that Saskatchewan and Canada made under the Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights Covenant. And Article 11 of this covenant recognizes the right of everyone to an adequate standard of living for themselves and their family, including adequate food, clothing, and housing, and to the continuous improvement of living conditions. Article 7 of the covenant recognizes the right of everyone to the enjoyment of just and favorable conditions of work, which ensure workers with fair wages for decent living for themselves and their families, as well as equal remuneration for work of equal value. So what this means is that concerns such as adequate income security benefits, a living wage, quality and affordable housing and childcare, and pay equity are not just social policy issues for government, but they're basic human rights that the state is responsible to uphold. And the UN Committee on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights has been very critical of Canada and indeed all of the provinces for not ensuring these rights in such a wealthy nation. As I said, we've developed our proposals through extensive consultation in the past, and it's interesting that the proposals that have been outlined have been very similar to commitments that Saskatchewan and Canada have made under international law. So out of previous consultations, the larger headings of adequate income security benefits, a living wage, quality and affordable housing and childcare, equity initiatives, and fair taxation have been issues that have consistently been raised. And so we base most of our proposals in those areas. But it is interesting that the same commitments that have been identified to us, or same proposals, are commitments that we are already obligated, or the government of Saskatchewan is already obligated under international law to uphold for almost 50 years now. So one of the big picture proposals that we've been calling for is the need for an act to end poverty in Saskatchewan, which would entrench these commitments in enforceable legislation, and also agency that with legislative teeth to ensure that government does have compliance with those rights. And this would allow us to once again play a leading role in putting forward people-friendly initiatives that can be a model for the rest of the country. Despite all of its weaknesses in regard to colonialism and racism and a long history of poor bashing and inequality, one of the prouder parts of Saskatchewan history is that we also do have the history of Medicare, of the cooperative movement, and of the country's first Bill of Rights. So we're building on that tradition. We believe that we need to be expanding human rights legislation in the province. Now, in terms, I just want to touch on some of the key issues, and I will mention that there's a few things in your discussions both this morning and this afternoon. You'll be talking about issues and ways to move forward, but there's a few immediate things that we will be asking you to consider. One is that we are, the public side of this event today, and including the wider public, is that we are having a rally at 12:30 in Victoria Park by the monuments in the front of the Cornwall entrance to Victoria Park, where the front monuments are. We have provided some signs with an October 17th and other anti-poverty themes for people. So if you are interested, please join us at 12:30. Lunch is being brought in at 11:45, so we'll have an opportunity to eat before those who wish to go can go over, but we do hope that you'll join us there. There is also another event coming up relatively soon, which is on October 22nd, next Wednesday. It's the opening of the fall session of the Legislative Assembly. It's going to be a very important and interesting assembly because issues around rent control and the joint provincial $10 a day child care plan will be up front and center, as will the fact that very recently on October 1st we had the very piddly $35 increase to Saskatchewan's minimum wage, which I'll be talking about in a minute. So those are issues that we know are going to be talked about in the Legislative Assembly this fall. And on the 22nd at 11 o'clock, and there are flyers here, there is an anti-austerity rally that we and other groups are involved in. And so if you're able to be out at the legislature at 11 a.m. on Wednesday morning, that would be wonderful. Also, if there's any folks here that would be interested in speaking at that event, we are still looking for speakers to fill in at that time. Now, I mentioned that rent control is going to be a hot issue because it's being raised in the legislature, and we do have the petitions for rent control, which will be presented throughout the fall session. So we should have enough to handle signatures for anybody who's willing to sign off. There's the back table by the iced tea and the water over there. We also have flyers for both the anti-austerity event and after the anti-austerity event, Solidarity or Palestinian Solidarity Regina will have a rally about business with genocide that will be taking place at noon. So for those who are interested and able, they can stay after for that event as well. I want to go into a few of the key issues that we've identified through our processes and have been of immediate concern. On the income security front, the big issue of recent years has been the implementation of the Saskatchewan Income Support Program, which initially came into effect in 2019, but was expanded to completely replace the traditional welfare programs in the summer or September 1st of 2021. At present, that program only provides $660 per month for all shelter-related needs for Regina and Saskatoon. So that's not just your rent, it's also heat, power, water, telephone are all wrapped into that. And for the rest of the province outside Saskatoon and Regina, it's only $600 per month. On top of that, people only receive $365 for a adult basic income, which is to meet all other needs. So personal and household items and transportation, as well as food, are amongst the things that all have to be met out of that. And I should mention, though it was done very quietly, when SIS was brought in, it removed almost all of the special needs policies and regulations that people had access to under the traditional Saskatchewan assistance plan. So not only were the benefits very low, and not only did it not cover utilities as the Saskatchewan assistance plan did, but there was also very little capacity to meet any other special needs. But I do want to mention have a bit of a focus on the utility question itself. The big issue there with the loss of coverage of actual cost for power, heat, and water and telephone is that it has meant that there's been a huge impact on people, and we've certainly seen it through our ministry where utility coverage questions have been the number one issue that we've dealt with along with rental coverage in recent years. And this was confirmed by the provincial auditor's report in the last 2 years, where it was identified that there was 5,200 households in Saskatchewan that had significant utility arrears or were in a cutoff situation with their utilities. This also relates to the issue of people becoming unhoused because you can't maintain, you can't gain and maintain a rental unit without having your utilities caught up. And so that's become a huge barrier for folks on the S.A.I.D program. The other program is the Saskatchewan Assured Income for Disability for people with significant and enduring disabilities. It originally came in 2009 for people in level of care, but was expanded to people living independently with disabilities in 2012. And initially it was positive news because it was roughly an additional, it worked out to be becoming an additional $350 a month more than what SAP, the Saskatchewan Assistance Plan, provided. The problem is that after the first 3 years of indexing process, where it was increased $50 a month for over the course of 2012 to 2015, it then went 8 years without a single benefit increase. So, and we all know about the cost of living increases in recent years, but certainly from 2015 to 2023, the cost of living went up significantly, but S.A.I.D benefits did not. This was combined with the fact, and the irony of this for us is that it was in 2015 that the province did its consultations around an anti-poverty strategy, which it released in 2016. But really, since 2016, we've seen really nothing but cuts to programs and austerity measures, so that a whole bunch of special needs were cut from the S.A.I.D program, as were rental supports, including excess shelter for people with the rental supplement, and then the loss of the rental supplement altogether, with the exception of people who are grandfathered and who continue to lose their grandfathering to this day. So the S.A.I.D program has been falling further and further behind. Just a quick comparison in terms of where we're at with these programs in relation to where poverty lines are, because the official poverty line now is market basket, recognized federally, and the official poverty line for an individual in Saskatchewan is just over $27,000 per year, with the deep poverty measure at just over $20,000 per year. A person on the S.A.I.D program in Saskatchewan averages $17,000 per year, and a person on the S.A.I.D program just under $13,000 per year. So not only are people on the S.A.I.D and S.A.I.D programs living in poverty, they're living well below the deep poverty measure. One final point I want to make, because it's been a hot issue for us recently, is that we have in recent months appealed to the Saskatchewan Court of Appeals the ruling that we had taken originally in 2023, a charter challenge against the mandatory expectation of people to take out early CPP on the S.A.I.D and S.A.I.D programs. People are compelled to take it out because if they don't take out early CPP, they will lose their income security benefits. This is of absolutely no benefit to people while they're on the S.A.I.D and S.A.I.D programs, because it's clawed back dollar for dollar, so it simply becomes a benefit to the provincial treasury. But in the long run, it also hurts people who've been on those programs, because by taking it out 5 years early, they could lose as much as 36% of their post-age 65 CPP benefits. So it takes poverty in the short term and extends it, makes it worse for the long term as well. So we have taken that through to the Provincial Court of Appeals. We unfortunately lost at Court of King's Bench in January, but we are expected to be heard in 2026, with hopefully a ruling coming down in the coming year as well. But that's been a very important issue for us. Quickly, 3 other issues that we've identified in terms of our call for an act. One is the call for a living wage, which is also connected to our international commitments. As I said, we've just recently seen a very small increase of 35 cents per hour. And really what we know is that, based on the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives study of what it costs to have an actual living wage in Saskatchewan, it would take a minimum wage between $18 and $19, depending on community, for it to be at a living wage level. But even that is not enough in today's rental market, because it's been understood that for a person to be able to afford a one-bedroom apartment in Regina or Saskatoon and meet their other most basic needs, they would need a wage of $22 per hour working full-time in order to meet those needs. And one example of this is that in terms of the big picture, in Saskatoon, to live above the poverty line, you would have to make $41,000 per year, whereas what you receive on the minimum wage for a full year is just over $31,000 a year. So you're literally $10,000 a year below a living wage with present minimum wage policy. Now, obviously, housing has been the big issue in recent years. The huge growth in people being unhoused, and certainly that has shown up in the recent PIT counts, which I think have been understood have been underestimated. But you know, with 824 people unhoused in Regina and just under 15,000 or 1,500 in Saskatoon, we know that this is a growing problem across the province, and I've heard about encampments from everywhere across the province, including a large one that stayed up for some time in the city, in the small city of Nipawin. So it's certainly not just a larger city issue. And this, of course, is at the same time where we have a significant number of vacant social housing units, and also an overall decline in the number of social housing units in the province where rent is geared to income. So one of the things that was mentioned in a recent report of this is that in recent years there's been $500 million worth of rent geared to income housing which has been empty during the midst of a homelessness crisis across the province. So obviously, making sure that we're making best use of the social housing that is available, but also getting back to a much larger share of non-market based housing is of top priority. And along with this is the fact that Saskatchewan continues to be an outlier when it comes to rent control legislation. 80% of Canadians live in jurisdictions that have some form of rent control legislation. We don't have any caps on the amount the rent can be increased in a given year. So obviously that's caused considerable hardship with Saskatchewan having the highest rental increases in the country in recent years. And so we're strongly supporting the motion in the legislature for rent control legislation that will be coming up in this session. Finally, I want to make mention of the child care policies before the legislature. Saskatchewan continues to be a child care desert when it comes to child care policy. We know that in Saskatoon is the worst coverage in the country, and in Saskatoon, of all the major cities in the country, the lowest coverage, with only 22% of children having access to child care. Also, Regina fell in third place with only 24% of households. So it's not just an issue in rural Saskatchewan, but in urban Saskatchewan in relation to those child care deserts. Also, as of today, the government of Saskatchewan has yet to renew the joint federal-provincial $10 a day child care agreement. And we are one of only 2 provinces not to sign, and certainly failure to extend this agreement will mean that child care affordability and availability will be further reduced. I just want to conclude by saying that, that it's not only morally and socially responsible to be moving to end poverty in Saskatchewan, it's also financially responsible. A few years ago, the Anti-Poverty Ministry asked Paul Gingrich with the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives and Poverty-Free Saskatchewan to find out what the gap was between where people were at and what it would take to raise everybody in the province above the poverty line. The figure that he came back on based on Revenue Canada information was that it would cost $547 million a year. That sounds like a lot of money, but the Poverty Cost Campaign a few years before that, when cost of living was even lower, found that we were spending $3.8 billion as a province on the cost of poverty in our health, justice, and family support systems. So literally we're spending 7 times on the cost, what it would cost to eliminate poverty altogether and eliminate legislated poverty. There's certainly nothing inevitable about poverty, and so we have a saying on our office door that we originally got from the National Anti-Poverty Organization: the existence of poverty is shameful, to be poor is not, because poverty is never a personal choice. It's the result of public policies and large economic inequality, with Saskatchewan having has had the highest rate of inequality between the highest 10% of families and the poorest 10% of families. That's been an ongoing problem. But there's nothing inevitable about this. We can change policies. We've legislated policy. We can legislate an end to poverty if we choose as a society to do so. We can have a much more just, equitable, and humane Saskatchewan, but we do need the public and political will, and that's why we're here today, just to continue working together and look at new strategies to make sure that the political and public will is in place to make poverty history. So I've talked too long, but I just want to conclude on that note, and I hope that people will grab a sign at lunch and sign our rent control petition.
I will.
Thank you, Peter. For the next speaker is Terry Sleva. It's Terry Sleva. Is it Donna? Okay. No, my bad, sorry. It's Donna Standing Rock. Standing ready?
It's standing ready.
I didn't have the sign. Donna is a member of the White Bear First Nation and a lifelong resident of Regina. Donna has extensive experience with community groups and working at all levels of government. She's also lived experience and is a strong advocate for those who need support. Please welcome Donna Standing Ready.
I'm going to talk to myself. Can you all hear me? Okay. Yeah. Thank you for inviting me to be here today. Poverty is something that I'm well acquainted with. You know, I've been in it, about to climb myself out of it, and then all of a sudden back in it, because life happens, right? People die, people get born, people move, people break up and ask to live with me. I'm going, okay, you know, and I'm there. I'm there to help people, right? And not just my own family, but those in my community as well. You know, many times I get called by the police in the middle of the night to, you know, go look for our women, you know. Some women are not that open to a uniform in the middle of the night, and you know, it's really concerning. So, you know, I do stuff like that too. And then I thought, well, okay, let me back up a little bit. I've been in Regina most of my life, and I thought I would take a sabbatical to move to Nova Scotia, but I was still getting phone calls. Donna, can you help me? And I'm going, oh my gosh. You know, I just wanted a little bit of a break. But, you know, being an activist, being a voice for my community, and even in Nova Scotia when I was there, you know, I was still being a voice, still searching out those community supports that would better help people, much like I did here back home in Regina. So I guess I'm a dyed in the wool, is that what they call it? Activist, you know. Thanks. Yeah, I was born in Beachy, Saskatchewan, and we moved back and forth between the sugar beet fields of southern Alberta and White Bear, and then due to domestic violence, I got scooped, as they say, you know. I had to live with a foster family while my mom healed up in the hospital here in Regina. And she eventually got us back, and I went to Connaught School, Lakeview School, back to Connaught, you know, and finished off my education at Balfour, good old Balfour Tech. Anybody? Okay. Yeah, I had fun, Mom did her best, bringing us up and making sure that we had the experiences that she thought that we needed to have that skill set and the education, and to always think outside the box, and that's my motto. Just think outside the box. Don't take we've always done things this way type of approach. No, it's time to let's stretch our minds a little, That's a message that I carry. So finish off high school here, and went to university. Well, I fell in love, and I got pregnant, and I was like 20. And in my community, a lot of my friends were having children younger than me, right? They were all in their mid-teens. So I was considered this old lady at the age of 20 to be giving birth. But I thought, well, life happens. So I couldn't work anymore. At the time, I was working as a secretary with the Federation of Saskatchewan Indians. And I had to quit my job. I moved back home to Regina, because at the time I was in Saskatoon. So I'm back here now. And my friend said, well, why don't you apply for social services? Oh, I didn't really want to do that because my employment insurance ran out. But I thought, I want to stay home with my little girls, right? So I did. I applied for social services. Well, that didn't sit too well with me because I found the social worker to be quite rude. And I thought, how dare you treat me like this? I am here just for a short-term help. You treat me with dignity. But back then in the early 80s, nobody treated young, Indigenous single women with children with any kind of dignity. They just look down their glasses at me, as if they're all that, as if they've never done human things like I do, I was going to say something else, but that was a little graphic. I know. We all go to the bathroom the same way. That's a nicer way of putting it. But, yeah. So, I was on assistance and working off and on, under the table to supplement, getting some little bit of extra food for the kids, And my family grew. We grew and we grew. I have 5 children now. And at the same time, I decided, okay, enough of this. I'm going to go to university. I need a better education. And it wasn't enough just to have a high school education. I find that as a young Indigenous woman, you really need that education and that experience just to be on par with the rest of society, to have that money earning thing, because God knows we need money, food in our belly, clothes on our back, and a roof over our head. So off to university I went, and daycare. Daycare was a bit of a challenge. Peter mentioned daycare here. Back then it was $900 a month per child. Not this $10 a day stuff. That's something that I advocated for too. So that's something that my own children and grandchildren get to reap the benefits of, is because of people like us in this room. We're willing to open our voices and give voice to all of these concerns that we see going on in our neighborhood that affect our friends, families, just to make that positive change. So I'm glad to say that that has come about. Although, now my kids are all grown. That's okay. The other thing is, so I've had the pleasure as my children grew up and graduations, oh my God, 5 graduations, 5 this, 5 that, you know. It was an expensive thing to do, but you know, as a mom, you just make those things happen. That's what I did. You just do it. No one, and you know, coming as a intergenerational person, you know, I didn't go to residential school. My mom did, and mom fought for me to stay home because I remember them coming. I remember government officials coming and standing in our room. And my mom owned a house on Cameron Street, not too far from here, and they wanted to know why I wasn't at school. I was at Connaught School. I had no idea what residential school was, you know. So, and I remember mom staring them down and said, "You're not taking my kids. No, they're going to school here. Go away." And I'm really grateful for that. I didn't have to experience that, but I did get to experience a lot of the after effects too. So trying to struggle along, you know, bringing up my children, you know, they got the old Huxtable, Roseanne type of upbringing, you know, because those are my influences on TV, right? And some of the kids that I hung out with at school too, their families. So it was just a big mixture. Why I'm saying all this is because I was really envious of a lot of my counterparts that it looked to me that they had it so much easier. And me too, I wanted some of those things. I wanted a car. I wanted to take my kids on vacation. But it's hard to do it if you haven't got that income, right? No matter how hard I've been trying. So, finished high school. My kids, my last one entered kindergarten. And that freed me up to become more vocal. And I got involved with Regina Native Women's Association. I got involved with Amnesty International. And at the same time, you know, because of my activism, people started taking note and urged me to, we had a change in government at the time, urged me to apply for a position up at the Ledge. And I thought, hey, this is really cool. Yeah, I can work there. Like, what do you want me to do, you know? And I learned really quickly how to interact with all levels of government. The municipal here, City Hall, I guess, Pat Fiacco was our mayor back then. Yeah. Oh, yeah, and Alan Blakeney, you know, like, I grew up calling him Uncle Al. I didn't know, I'm just a kid, right? And when you're a kid, you know, none of that really dawns on, none of it had dawned on me until later. But, you know, seeing my own mother's activism in the community, I learned really quick that I can do anything. And if I put my mind to it, I will learn. So, you know, I learned all about federal bureaucracy. I learned all about how to get a private member's bill through not only the province, but down in the House of Commons. I learned that I have a voice, and I learned that the louder I spoke, the more people that I connected with, not just only in Regina, but also in the provincial level and down in Ottawa. And I joined the many voices it took to get our apology for the residential schools, to get that through the House of Commons, and to get the Prime Minister at the time and the leaders of all the other parties to take note. And you know, one of the things that I spoke about was, I remember my great Cookham Ruby Kiwi, she told me about sending her little girl, Rose, to school. One year she didn't come back home with the other kids. And she was wondering what happened. Here, she was 9 years old when she went to school. She was whipped to death for taking extra food, and her body lays buried somewhere outside of the boarding school. We're still looking for her. But I remember telling that story down in Ottawa, and everybody just shocked. no, that doesn't happen. Well, guess what, folks? It does happen. I get all these stories back, and I'm going to keep on until we get something done. And that's how I feel about poverty. Why am I still protesting this shit? You know? Like, how come? This is something that needed to be addressed over and over. Like, I'm now over 60 years old. Yeah. And, you know, I remember all of the protesting done back then, you know, taking part in the rallies going across the Albert Street Bridge. So, now that I gave you a bit of background, you know, of things that I've done and being my employability, my education, you know, I'm a smart cookie. I can make things happen. Well, in recent years, because of COVID, I had moved back from Nova Scotia. And the job offer that I had was all of a sudden pulled off the table. And I thought, okay, cool, you know, I can do this, I can do this. Well, I couldn't because no one was hiring. COVID was on. And I thought, okay, I'll take advantage of the federal program. Well, I don't know, I forget what they called it. Sir, yeah, that's it. So I took advantage of that, you know, and that gave me a little bit of leeway, and that was okay. And then I landed another job that allowed me to work 3-4 days out of the week, you know, because of COVID, you know, we had to have like 2 people maximum in our office, and then, well, whatever, we did it. But then again, due to COVID and due to government decisions, my position was deleted. So back to EI. EI was running out. I wasn't getting a job. Things are getting tougher. People in my family were dying left, right, and center. I come from a huge family. And it was getting really, really hard. The most recent death actually was just a couple nights ago, but before that was my son. He passed away last November, you know, and I spent all of last spring and summer up in Cold Lake taking my grandchildren in to go see him. And I knew I needed a job, but I just couldn't think right, you know, I really needed some extra help in that area. And at that time, I applied for SIS, the Saskatchewan Income Support Program, where they wanted to know everything up the yin-yang, you know. They really put me under the microscope. And I had to sign off on all these papers. Yes, I give you permission to call my doctors. I give you permission, you know, everything, you know, my banking information, CRA account, you know, like, they want to know everything. And I felt so violated. I thought all I wanted was just a little bit of money to help me out here, you know. I'm also a homeowner. I don't know if I mentioned that before. But, you know, falling behind in taxes, you know, and utilities, right? SIS, like, gave me, was it just over $1,005 for the time that I was on there. My budget, and it's a budget that just from lonely old me, was at $2,300 a month. You know, that was utilities, that was eating properly. You know, I've also suffered 3 heart attacks, so I need to eat a little bit better, you know, and needed transportation to go see the doctors and all that. All of those living problems, you know, and I had to go in and meet with the social worker. It was never the same social worker. They always say that, oh, you'll be assigned a social worker. Nobody gets assigned a social worker. You get assigned a social work number, and then whoever's on call, whatever experience they have, you know, they get to sit there with their regular paychecks and go, oh yeah, well, I see here that you paid your water bill for just over $400. Can I ask you where you got the money from? And at that time, you know, I said, well, I borrowed it off my mom. And he said, well, we gotta take that off of your next check. And I just went, are you kidding me? I said, but this is like, it's water. You need water. Like the basic human right. And they clawed back the damn total amount. And they said, you can't ever, the ministry says, you must budget yourself properly with the $1,005 every month. And you must be able to cover all of your living bills. Well, my mortgage, or rent, was at $1,067. So already, that amount was already gone. I had nothing left for food or anything. So a few more months go by, and last Christmas was the hardest Christmas ever in my life. And I always said this was, I had more ice cubes in my freezer than I did meat, than I did anything else. And for me, buying a little thing of milk was such a luxury. Counting the pennies, and never mind, didn't even have any bottles. Like, why would I buy pop or anything like that, So it was really tough. And I'm a very prideful person too. I never thought that I would be in this position. Because look at me, I make things happen, I speak out about this, but I just couldn't speak out for myself. It's hard to eat pride. So I just let a few people know, that was very, very grateful to my community of Regina and White Bear, to come through and give me some of that, And during this whole time last Christmas, just before Christmas, I was also kept applying for jobs. That's all I was doing. That's all I knew to do was, and I'm a lucky person. I still had an old rickety computer to work with. And I did, oh my God, my friend. So I was able to still apply for work, and I'm technically S.A.I.D, right? The best Christmas gift was a job offer. They called me and said, we thought we'd give you the good news on Christmas Eve. And I thought, right on, I didn't start for a couple of months, but I don't care. I was just happy that better days were coming. And that I didn't have to put up with those invasive questions and seeing my income getting clawed back that I desperately needed. There was a point during the 12, 14 months I was on CIS that I thought I'd have to sell my house. I thought, I'm just going to go live under the bridge. Nobody gives a shit about me. I got no kids to raise or anything. It's just me by myself, This is how people get homeless, Can't afford the basic thing like a roof over your head. You can walk to different places, to the soup kitchens, or put the call out that, you need some food, but you need at least a roof over your head to protect you from the elements, because who the hell wants to freeze their ass off out downtown Regina, I worry about my friends and relatives that have to take advantage of those places because they can't live together. Oh, that's the other thing. SIS does not let people live together if they're collecting for the same address. The whole house has to live on the $1,005. And how I know that is that my son came to live with me and he applied. Well, then I got my thing clawed back and I'm sitting there with like $200. But okay, this is not happy either, right? Like, give people a chance. I know that these programs are set up to help us, but for the government's uncaring, snotty little attitude, telling our people, my community, to stuff it oh, you got paid a little extra money, we're clawing that back too, you know, and just making more stress, you know, and we see a rising, I could really understand, you know, like going into the store and being so hungry, you know, like I got just enough money for a loaf of bread, you know, oh my, I would like to have some juice too, but know that that's something that's a luxury. Today, I can't afford that. I can't afford a whole thing, but you know, the occasional glass is really, really nice. I hope I don't have to go back on cis again. Oh, that's the other thing. Because I'd suffered heart attacks and I'm diabetic as well, the worker said that I need to fill out all these forms and have the doctor sign off on it. The doctors don't want to sign off on it. They don't want to put their good name and reputation on that dotted line. They told me, no, we know you had 3 heart attacks, Donna. We know you're diabetic, you know, but you seem to be managing and you don't need anything special happening for you. So, yeah, no kidding, hey? Like, F you. F you. You know, the stress of just daily living for those months put an unbearable burden on me. I was at the point of just waking up and crying, and at one point I just sat on my couch and I thought, now what? You know, I hated having those bills coming in, you know, for the power, the energy, the water, just the basics. Never mind the house taxes, you know. But just to eat, just to be warm, just to have some electricity so I can cook. Those are big things. And I speak on behalf of my community. I know that this needs to be addressed, that we need more voices to join us together on this journey. This journey that is still here, that is caused by these damn policies and legislation, you know. I could get really, really mean with things here, but I won't. I'm going to shut up about now. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Donna. Actually, just a quick reminder too, just I know some people came late, but came after I announced it. But just through here is the bathrooms, and yeah, the coffee, tea, and all the things are back there. So just in case people didn't realize or came after. So the next speaker is Terry Sleva. Terry Sleva is a longtime disability, social justice, and anti-poverty advocate. She says that the longer she's been an activist, the more she's learned and grown. Terry has worked hard to make a difference in changing policy to help all people. Please welcome Terry Sleva.
Thank you for the warm welcome. No, Donna, it's a hard act to follow. She really hit home with it. I wanted to inject humor into my speech. What the hell is funny about criminalizing poverty? Criminalizing poverty and hopelessness and everything else. Vulnerable people and racism. So I'm going to, I hate numbers, but I'm going to a couple of things. Rather than defining different disabilities, I multiple sclerosis with me, and sometimes my voice goes on, but I'm gonna try my best. Anyway, so defining different disabilities, I will just say that there are visible and invisible ones. Invisible including addiction. According to Canadian statistics, 1 in 6 people with disabilities live in poverty. I really think that number should be higher. But anyway, that's one, and that's 16.5 out of the population. 16.5% living with a disability and in poverty turns survival into extreme sport against life's harshest challenges. It's one that people participate in when they don't have a choice. Seriously, disability and poverty are deeply interconnected. People with disabilities often face higher living costs, accessible housing, transportation assistive devices, and medical care, while also experiencing barriers to employment in education and social inclusion. These systemic obstacles trap many in cycles of poverty, especially when social supports are inadequate or fragmented. People with disabilities are 4 times more likely to experience houselessness, and more than 2 times more likely to experience hidden houselessness. They are also likely to experience houselessness because of violence. 53% of disabilities who have experienced houselessness reported that is because of violence, compared to 36% of people without disabilities. 53% compared to 36%. The escape route is not made. Medical assistance in dying. Although certain authoritarian figures consider that a viable option, whether you are disabled or not. Let's put these authorities in poverty with a disability and see how they react.
Here, here, here.
Let's be honest. Living on disability benefits is like being told to run a marathon on a half a sandwich. Rent, medications, assistive tech, transportation. It's an extensive game of survival bingo, and somehow we never win the jackpot. True solutions begin with recognizing disability as a social and economic justice issue, not merely a medical one. Quit forcing us to live in institutions where dignity and independence are taken away. Governments must ensure livable disability benefit, affordable and accessible housing, and inclusive education and employment opportunities. Universal design and barrier-free infrastructure which allow participation without constant struggle. The real solution? Stop helping us with sympathy and start helping with systems. livable incomes. Build housing that fits wheelchairs and budgets, and include disabled folks at the policy table. Preferably one that's height adjustable. Investing in community-based supports, such as personal care, mental health, and adaptive technologies, promotes independence and reduces institutional reliance. Employers and policymakers need to challenge stereotypes by valuing disabled people's experience, expertise, and creativity, rather than viewing us as charity cases. Finally, centering people with disabilities in policy making ensures that solutions reflect lived experience. Addressing poverty through a disability lens by combining income security, accessibility, and respect for human rights creates a fairer society for everyone. Disability justice is not, it is economic justice. And inclusion is not a luxury. It's a necessity to genuine equality. Because when disabled people thrive, everyone benefits. We just need a world that stops treating accessibility as an optional upgrade. All we want is equality of life. Thank you.
Because I know social services.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Terry. And just one last time while we still have them up here, let's just give a round of applause for our three morning speakers. Like I said, while they're sitting here, we thought it'd be a good time to have a Q&A. So if people at your tables have been talking about things or thinking about things, have kind of questions that to ask and have people up here answer or kind of be able to contribute, maybe raise your hand, we'll try to find you. And then if you want to come up here to use the mic, you can do that, or you can just holler from your table, or say something that I can repeat on the mic, but whatever works for you. You first? Okay.
My voice carries. I won't need a microphone. I'm not poor. I've never been poor. I don't judge myself by how much I have, but by how little I need. What I need is for all of us to realize that we can't just complain about these things and tell our sad stories. I've been homeless for 2 years. I'm not anymore. Congratulations, Leanne. Writing a book about my experiences. Read it, buy it. What we need to do is use a weapon that we all have that we don't use enough. And we need to make everyone we know use this weapon. It took those fascist conservatives in the legislature less than 2 decades to undo over half a century of socialist policy development and progress. Vote! You have to vote! Don't sit here and feel sorry for yourself. We don't need sympathy like Gary said. We need your vote, and we need you to vote responsibly, and we need you to vote for change. Thank you very much. Oh, I'm here on behalf of the American Indian Movement. Leonard Peltier is free and alive and living in his home at Turtle Mountain Reserve in North Dakota.
I was there at that job like a year and a half, and here that job paid for my funeral services. Like I said, if I'm going to leave this world, I'm going out my own way. Yeah. So now I'm just waiting. Now, like I said, I'm living on my own terms. Now I'm just building. I'm just building myself. So.
Yeah. When they were responding to it, the next day, the British were lined up there and
Building the life that you deserve after years of domestic violence. So.
The welfare system, in my mind, is an active sort of humiliation. Asking someone to give back money when they don't have enough money to pay for a power bill that should have been paid for by them.
Even though COVID hit us like 6 years ago,
Bottom line is,
COVID was a good thing and a bad thing. It was a good thing because it kept the borders closed, sort of. It was a bad thing because it took my hubby out. And I can see that because he
I was under 70,000.
like I said, him and his family, they didn't want, when COVID hit, they did not want to, listen to government regulations. Stay home, 6 feet apart. Don't do this, don't do that, keep a face mask on. They didn't want to do none of that. And so now, I don't know if they did or not because they were down in the States and they're away from me. I think he said he did. I did not get mine. My girls, we did get ours after. After things started opening up again, we did get ours eventually. Like I said, they did not, none of his family wanted to stay home. Us girls, we stayed home. We never got sick. We have not been sick, like other than like a cough or whatever. We have not been sick in 6 years.
I don't think it's going to improve until we change the mindset.
And so all his family got sick. So my hubby died, his sister died, and his sister's son died. And so I said, they all went tumbling down as life went on. So within 5 years, one another, all 5 of those siblings passed away. 5 years.
Okay, follow up. Hello, Mike. Haven't seen you in a minute or two. Follow up a little bit. I got very lucky with my doctor. So, yeah, very lucky, and I appreciate it all the more since you first heard. One of the things that led to my health journey being much, and I waited years longer than it needed to be, was a lack of information. And even within the health system, people didn't know what the other people were doing. An example, at multiple health issues, one of them ended up being hip arthritis. But I thought I just had a nasty groin pull. That's something you just go to a physiotherapist for. So I got the requisition and called most of the physiotherapists in the city and was told I'd have to pay $90 up front. And I heard from other people that they were paying for their entire course of treatment. And I don't know, how many people have tried getting reimbursed by social services?
We gave up.
Yeah.
10 years, gave up.
Yeah. What nobody knew, not even, and I ultimately learned from home care, from somebody who actually was going above and beyond her job, but shortly thereafter, this is a tangent, left to do a better job, better paying job. All the good ones leave, it's sad fact. But nobody knew there was one practicing physiotherapist in Regina that direct bills health. One. Nobody knew about her or her practice. There were 2 physiotherapists. For that, I went 2 years without treatment or a proper diagnosis. All over what would have amounted to $900 that I couldn't put up front. That I didn't need to if everybody had known. Now, I would like, one of the changes I would like to see, it's not social services, but that all practitioners with services covered by extended health benefits be required to direct bill. So we had that fight, and I'm not kidding, 50 years ago with optometrists. I don't know if you would remember something like that. Optometrists were notorious for direct billing their patients on assistance. And that was a fight that happened and was won. Now optometrists have to direct bill. I say all covered practitioners should be required. People are going without very desperately needed treatment because they can't put the money up front.
William Campbell? Yeah, those two brothers. They got murdered within 9 years of each other. And here that day that happened on April 27th when that was happening, the cops had like quarantined off.
I'm a social worker and
Me and
mental
my
health
older
therapist.
daughter, we were walking downtown. We were coming
Who
down
was
this
born with FAS. Her mother was born with FAS.
Right through that crime scene
Wonderful
because we
woman.
had no idea what it was. We had
Who
no
lived
idea
in
who
poverty
it
all
was.
her life. And what I want to bring up is something you don't hear very often when it comes to social assistance. And that is the criminalization of the poor. I've also done outreach work at the jail up here. By the way, I got kicked out of the jail for some things I said while I was there. Just, you know. I was told I was not allowed back. But, so I ended up in court 2 weeks ago as a support for this young woman. Because she has been banned from most grocery stores in Regina for stealing food for herself and her children. She's been charged repeatedly with theft, and she ended up in court. Thankfully, she has not just myself as a support. There are a couple of other agencies. We were all there with her. Thankfully, they do have in the courthouse a courtroom that's designated for mental health. They call it mental health court. So it would be for people with disabilities of some kind. However, not everyone has that ability to end up having all these supports that this young woman has. Not everyone has the ability to be able to find the resources to feed yourself, to feed your children, when what everyone else has been saying here, there is no hope with the government that we have right now.
There is none.
Absolutely no hope, and there never will be. So I thought I'd bring that up. And I'm sure there may be some of you here
Like I said, I
who
have 3 girls at
understand
home.
when I say the
and, like,
criminalization of the
I've been
poor.
here in the city. I didn't grow up here.
And
I
we
grew
have
up
to
in
fight
Prince
this,
Albert.
and we have to fight
And I
it
moved
loudly.
here
What's your name?
31,
Mulligan Hill.
it'll be 32 years next year.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet
My
you.
girls were born here. I've been here almost
That's
32
about all I have to
years.
say right now.
And
But
here we'd be on and off
for
the
good.
food bank,
I'm
collecting
in this.
food hampers
This
from
isn't
the food bank.
only client I have. This was
And I got
the
so
most
tired of it
recent,
because her last,
issue
probably
that I
cut
was
off for
trying
about
to help with.
let's see, a little over,
So,
about 3 years now, we cut
there we
ourselves
go.
off.
There's another
And
aspect.
here I told the girls,
There are
every
too
time
many
we got
people
food
in
hamper,
jail with
it was
disabilities.
baked beans,
This
spaghetti or
whole
rice,
thing is a whole wraparound
lentils,
of everything
and
is
like
here
always the
that
same fruit.
ends
It's
up
always the same thing,
being
right? And it didn't
issue
seem like
of
any of the
poverty.
cool stuff was ever
But
thrown
as
in
we
the
know,
baskets,
it's
right?
not one issue.
So for like 2 or 3 years, we
It's
lived like that
multiple
off
issues
of beans,
because we are all
rice,
different.
macaroni,
We all have
lentils,
different needs.
spaghetti, all the
We all
basics,
have
right?
different abilities.
And I got so tired of it.
and we all
When
have
every time my
different
girls
strengths
tried to make a meal
that we
with the
can
lentils,
use together.
I wouldn't eat.
And I
My girl
think what
even
I
tried to
would
make
like to see,
like hamburger
honestly,
patties
Peter,
out of the
this
lentils.
here, I would
And it
like
got to the
see
point
this on
where
a
I,
provincial
you know,
level.
like hamburger is like hamburger. You eat a hamburger and it goes down, right? Lentils, it kept coming out. It kept breaking up, right?
So that
I can't hear
it's
her
not,
talking when
you know,
you're
so
mumbling back
peaceful
there.
all around. We're gonna get the money from the government.
She literally cut herself off
Thank you.
because he couldn't handle it anymore.
Is there any questions from people still, or anything that they want to contribute to the conversation?
Yeah, how do you get money from the government when the government is the problem?
That's a good question.
Or we're behind her. I
then
don't know
you
how
guys
she
might have noticed
can
those
not
little kind
hear
of
that.
colored cue cards that are on each table. There's one that starts with what is your favorite movie, or what is a movie that stood out to you, or a book that stood out to you. On your table, if you guys want to discuss some of those things, have a record keep or something that you want to write down conversations with people thought about, especially whatever about ideas that you should do.
Poverty issue is a big concern to you.
Element of how all these voices are present today.
Name a book or a movie that talk to me. I can't think of anything.
But there's something that I've been thinking about. Grade 12 students that are families that are in poverty. How could we help them get to university without the burden of paying tuition?
That's a good question. Does anyone up here, obviously, some people up here talking about being parents or working in anti-poverty? Do any of the speakers from this morning have anything to comment on that?
Student loans to help pay tuition.
Just a quick response. One of the issues that we've seen is folks that, well, generally post-secondary is not looking for people in income assistance as a no-no. For people on the SAID program, it's possible, but like the problem is that the student loan system is seen to be the first resort. And then it's a question of what the student loan is for. But really, ideally, people would be able to maintain their income security benefits and be able to attend post-secondary because that is restrictive. I should mention that with the exception in terms of education as being the upgrading our GED programs, but with the way that that's working now is that people do stay on the SIS program if they enter upgrading, and the best they can do is an additional $50 through the educational transition incentive, educational training incentive. So there's very little support for people even at that level, but that is something.
And there's the added complication that an awful lot of post-secondary programs are no longer accepted.
Right.
Say that again?
An awful lot, and it's been a long-term trend, an awful lot of post-secondary programs will no longer accept GED.
They won't accept it anymore.
Yeah, not all of them, a lot of them. I've been out of touch with the specifics for a while, so.
I'd like to respond to that. I don't believe that the province of Saskatchewan is accepting any GEDs anymore. They're gone.
So it's gone that far. I knew I was at the beginning where I was helping tutor GED students to have them learn after that. What did they spend all that time and effort for?
I just want to say, the University of Regina is conducting strategic planning, and one of the things I put, and I have been in contact with the members of the strategic planning committee, is giving grade 12 students coming from inner city schools, allowing them to take university with an agreement that the first year would be tuition free. That's something that I voice. Let's have more voices. Thank you.
Some of those tools, Peter, that you talked about at the beginning, the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, it has in one spot of it in there around education. And Canada, and this is not just our federal government, but our provincial and territorial governments are also responsible to ensure that we have an affordable access to post-secondary education, working towards it being free. If we don't use these tools, we lose those rights. So if you are wanting to try to do something around this, and going one voice at a time is not going to work. What they do is they end up playing this off against one another. We need to take an example of, Saskatchewan Assured Income for Disability Coalition. And what they did is they came together as a provincial organization. Now, they did have backing behind them. They come together as one voice on common issues, knowing full well we're still going to have our individual things that we want to work on, but they work on stuff that's common to everybody. We need to be looking at that. And this lady over here talked about voting. Yes. Very right. And Donna also talked about using your voice. Our political responsibility and our right doesn't begin with a check mark on a ballot. It begins the day those suckers are elected. So we got to stand up and do the fighting. And as we do it, don't think we're the only ones because people are living in poverty. There are other people that want to join us. They just don't know how. So we do have the ability to come together as a large group and push our government on poverty. And you need to remember, this is not just a provincial or territorial issue. This is a federal issue as well. Yeah. In 1995, 96, Peter, you got the numbers, dates in your head. Paul Martin Acts, the Canada Assistance Plan Act, which removed federal responsibility to all social programs in this country. We need to put our feet to their fire and make them once more responsible for all social programs in this country. And it can't just be a money bill that does it.
Another thing our pal Paul did was wrote enabling legislation making leaks okay. That's real estate investment trusts. So if you know if you've been involved in the housing, they're hugely behind the financialization of housing, which is why rents have been going up, which is why residential housing is being bought up long before private people who want to buy their house are able to even put in a bid. Anyway, I'm pretty urgent thinker, so maybe you can bring it back in.
I hear, go to the polls, vote, vote, vote. There's a lot of us that don't have that luxury to vote because the voting rules have changed. You need to have a place of residence where you are paying some bills. Now that was put into place during committee. If anybody was paying attention, and I was paying attention and trying to drum that drum, that we're excluding, we're putting another hurdle in front of our people. This is a simple, basic right. I've also heard Gandhi being thrown around. You know, him too, he realized that the power of the vote was crucial, just like this is as well. I fully endorse getting to the poll, but I also fully endorse making sure everybody, as long as you're living and breathing on our land, that you can vote too.
I do have a question for Peter. Did you mention the Canada Disability Benefits? Did you say they are calling it back, or they still haven't decided?
They are calling it back.
They've committed as of January of this year to not claw it back provincially. However, one thing that has us a little nervous is that Danielle Smith and the Alberta government has now decided that they are, and there has been some history of this province following what happens in Alberta. So we need to we have to be vigilant in terms of making sure that they don't move in that direction. But yeah, since the beginning of the year, and they actually have had multiple press statements on it saying that they won't be calling back the Canada Disability Benefit.
Let me add to that a little bit. If anybody pays attention to the fundraising costs as to where all our major political parties are getting their money from, S.A.I.D party has been known, and it still does get their money from Calgary and Edmonton. They host these huge fundraisers because are the main people in Saskatchewan going to support them in their pocketbook? No, because we don't agree. But they run over next door. Hey guys, we need some more money so we can snowball our way through Saskatchewan and rob them, the poorest of the poor, our children, those yet unborn. Robbing the futures, robbing us.
Awesome, yeah. Oh, do you want to share?
Yeah, I'm going to share about this program that they got for on SID for old age pension that they call back on us. They take quite a bit off of us. Plus, we also face the consequences from CPP. Not many people notice, because I've dealt with it several times, is also the federal government takes 36%. Like in my case, they're taking 36% off of my CPP check per month, which is close to $500 I lose. And out of that, for a living allowance, I only get $30.50 from CPP to live on. And then on top of it, I lose quite a bit towards SAS disability because they also declare my CPP as earned income, so I lose, like Peter knows, 1 for 1 out of it, 2 out of the top of it. So people that are on it, excuse me, they lose quite a bit of money, and they're also not well informed of what they're going into when they hit it. They're blind, and then when the doors open, they realize they're losing like up to thousands and thousands of dollars per year, and not knowing what their rights are, where to go, or how to act. Peter's helped me out quite a bit, and right up to the point where it can't go any further now. It's up to the government to make the policy, to make the change, which there's no plans of it currently right now. Oh, go on.
Wouldn't that thing there, it's coming in, I think next year, the government's gonna do all the low-income people's taxes themselves and plug them in to the programs that they can benefit from? I just heard it, didn't read the whole article, takes me forever to read things. Yeah, anybody know anything about that? No? Okay.
I mean, I think I've heard what you have, and it's just been in the last 10 days roughly that there's been a suggestion that it will be set so that there will be automatic filing so that people who would otherwise access child benefit and federal programs can do it without having to go through the filing process. I'm still low on details, but so supposedly this has been talked about. I know for decades.
Oh, okay. It's great. I recommend it. The people behind opposing it are TurboTax. Into it.
Of course.
Yeah, and they're claiming it. Well, the government's acting in conflict of interest. No, they're not. They're giving us something that a lot of people miss out on because of various barriers in terms of mental abilities. Like, some people are too anxious to file their taxes. That's a real thing. It's a legitimate thing. This helps with that. So, yeah,
So, I'm on disability. I have a lot of health conditions, and I have to fight. It took me about a year just to get on SAID, and I got help through anti-poverty. I actually had to call my MLA just to get it all set up, and then once I received all my benefits, all I would receive at the end of the month was $30.99 after my rent was paid. I've had about 3 or 4 workers, and something changed in disability now where when you get your special diet benefit, you have to submit receipts. So now she's only paying $14.41 of my rent, and then I have to use $110 of that to pay the rest of my rent, and then somehow submit receipts for $169. So I just find it really hard to do anything. Like, it's just, I have to live off my child tax, and I have a grown son who lives with me full time as well. So it's like we're constantly bouncing back and forth. Most of the time, my mother or my brother have to help me out with groceries and stuff because we just can't live off the child tax. I no longer receive any rental supplement, and now I have to do all this other things like buy my insurance, send a receipt for my groceries. But it's just like, what am I left with after my rent is paid? So it's really hard out here.
I'm glad you mentioned this, and it's I'm still getting my mind around what the most effective response is, because literally in the course of the last week, there's been a change in the process across the board in Saskatchewan for special diets as it relates to boost insure coverage. So we've literally learned in the last 24 hours that they're not allowing appeals on this either. But what's happened is that as a way for doctors to ensure that their patients can get the food that they need, for Boost and Ensure, supplemental diets will provide the number of cans per day, and so many people have received that as an additional benefit on top of their regular benefits or separate, but it's just been through direct deposit or check basis. But they've now changed it so that it can only be done through direct pharmacy billing or on a remuneration for receipts. So yeah, we know that we've already had a number of calls in the last couple of days, and we know we're going to get flooded because there's a lot of people are going to get hit, and we're hearing like people losing, like I've heard a family of 4 losing $1,800 in special diet money because of this. So yeah, it's big.
Well, and with NIB people, they'll try to submit it to Indian Affairs first before that, like doing it the other way through the government, through social services. So then you lose that amount that you get for it in your check. Also, I've noticed lately that my worker is only paying like $90 to $100 on my power bill, where I used to be fully paid. So what's that about?
Is there any question about family size or any issues about joint payment or anything like that?
Well, it is Connor and my name on the bill, but when I was with my second worker, she would just pay the whole thing. Then the worker after that pays the whole thing. And now this one pays this certain amount. And I figured it should have been half, right? Because there's 2 of us on there, so she pays half of it, and the other half would be Connor's responsibility. But Connor only gets $1,000 to live on. So
yeah, no.
We have a toddler in the house, right? So we need to constantly have like milk and Pampers and everything that she needs as well.
And yeah, I'd also be happy to follow up on this, but the question I have is, they're both names on the bill?
Just on the power bill. All my other bills are just me.
Okay. Because yeah, I mean, within the policy and regulations, they are responsible to cover full cost, but if based on other people, other adults, it's split along that basis. Yeah. So yeah, but that's something we can follow up with.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sweet. Yeah, we have about 15, 20 minutes, I think, in that kind of range, maybe 10, 15 minutes till food's supposed to get here. So yeah, those question cards, feel free to look at them, get someone in your group tables to write down. Also feel free to use the bathroom, stretch your legs, walk around, with your dads. And then yeah, we'll have lunch for a while, and after that we'll go out to the elements and the rallies. It looks nice though. So
So far away.
Yeah. Over to your, it's way over there.
I'm getting my car here. Okay, So here we are. I'm gonna go marching. Let me turn this thing around. Where are we going? I have no idea where everybody's going. Where's everybody? Ugh, I'm not scared. What don't kill me, it'll only make me stronger.
Exactly.
Oh, I'm Gen Xer. I cross where I please.
Now I think
He said the monument, he said. Peter said.
that lunch was awesome.
Yeah.
That soup, that vegetable soup was so delicious.
Yeah. I like that soup.
Yeah.
That tastes good. That filled me actually.
Yeah, yeah. Very nutritious. I have to have 2 pieces of pizza though.
Yeah. I controlled my eating. I grabbed one. Yeah. But I got silly. I had one of those muffins and I grabbed 2 more. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah, those muffins were good.
I go back for those.
Yeah.
I left them on the table. I figured if we were gonna go back, they'd still be sitting there.
Yeah, yeah.
So.
There's lots left too on the back.
Ah, there's right there, Peter.
Oh, there he is.
Unless we walk around the park. Here, you want a sign? Oh, are you good? You want a sign?
How are you?
Not too bad, how are you?
Good to see you. You did door knocking for me last October.
Oh yeah, I remember you.
Brent.
How's it going?
Brent Blakely. Good, thanks.
What are your thoughts on it? Like,
Well, you know what? This is something that we brought up at our convention this afternoon.
yeah.
Was to bring forward and push for some sort of transportation, whether it's bus service, whether it's van service, whether it's, but it's important to have.
YouTube video.
Yeah.
So with you,
Yeah. So absolutely, it's a priority. Hey, how are you? Good to see you. This is my wife, Carl.
Say hi. Hi, YouTube.
YouTube. Yes, it's just I'll take it. I'll take it. They don't have a card. I'm going. Okay, I'll give you that. Perfect. You and I have talked a lot.
I can go stand with my buddy over here. There. I goes, come stand with you, bud. There.
You're going where?
no, not good.
No.
I put my plate on.
Did you?
No, I'm going on the
That's exciting.
Wednesday.
That's exciting.
Okay, everyone, we're going to get started here with today's action. I'll pass it off to Peter Gilmer to speak first.
Thanks, Mandla. I want to begin by acknowledging that we are on Treaty 4 land, the lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Lakota, and Nakota, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. We are all beneficiaries of treaty and give thanks to Indigenous stewards and protectors of the land. I want to thank everybody for coming out. We've had a great morning over at Knox Met with a First Voice Anti-Poverty Forum that's been bringing together a good cross-section of people that we're working with, both to talk about what the key issues are, but also looking at how we can work together for change and some of the strategies that we need to look at moving forward. October 17th is always an important day for us at the Anti-Poverty Ministry, the International Day for the Eradication of Poverty. We recognize that we as Canadians have signed on to the UN Covenant on Economic, Cultural, and Social Rights, and that this means that issues such as adequate income security benefits, a living wage, quality and affordable housing, and child care are not just public policy issues for government, but that the state and the government has a responsibility to ensure these rights. And the bottom line is that the UN Committee on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights has been very critical of Canada and all of the provinces, because Canada cannot sign on to the covenant without the approval and commitment of every province. And it's very important that our provincial government starts to recognize these rights that they've committed to under international law, and that we start moving in each of these areas, starting with the issue of adequate income security. In recent years, we know that the big issue has been the implementation of the Saskatchewan Income Support Program, which has drastically changed income security in this province. The SIS program does not cover the cost of actual utilities for people, so costs for power, heating, water, phone are not covered under the SIS program. And what people are left with is, in Regina and Saskatoon, they receive $660 for all of their shelter-related needs, which combines their rent or mortgage along with all of their utilities wrapped into that $660, and actually that's higher than the rest of the province outside the two major cities, where it's only $600 a month to cover all of those needs. On top of that, with the SIS program, there is only $365 for an adult basic allowance, which you are to meet all of your food, household, and personal and transportation needs out of, which is just not enough. It's a combined amount of $1,025 inside of Regina and Saskatoon, and $965 in the rest of the province. So it's definitely not enough, and we know the impact of this in terms of the loss of utility coverage. The provincial auditor in the last couple of years recognized that there was 5,200 SIS households in the province that were in significant arrears or cutoffs based on being on the SIS program. So that's a very significant number of people. On top of that, the other program, the Saskatchewan Assured Income for Disability, has had significant declines in recent years. It went from 2015 to 2023 without a single benefit increase, while the cost of living during that period was extremely high. There has been some modest increases over the course of the last couple of budgets, but only meeting the most recent cost of living increases and not making up for all of the lost ground for all those years where there was not a benefit increase. It's also worth noting that in that 8-year span from 2015 to 2023, that the SAID program saw cuts to all kinds of special needs for beneficiaries of the program. Yes, and beyond that, cuts to rental supports. We saw the loss of excess shelter for people on the rental supplement, and then the cut to the rental supplement altogether. So it's much more difficult for people, both for those who've lost benefits on this SIS program through loss of utilities, but also the loss of benefits for S.A.I.D. It's very difficult for people to be able to gain and maintain housing without having been able to keep their utilities going, and unable to cover the actual cost of rent in this market. And that leads to a second issue for us this International Day, which is the issue of rent control for the province of Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan continues to be an outlier on this issue. 80% of Canadians live in jurisdictions with rent control legislation, but Saskatchewan continues to be without it. And because of that, we have the highest rental increases in the country over the course of the last few years, and it's led to incredible hardship as the market has been able to run wild. Along with that has been the issue of the growth in the number of unhoused people in our province, which continues to rise with every point in time count. And this comes at a time when there's many vacant social housing units in the province. Last year there was $500 million worth of social housing that was being left unused. And beyond that is the question of expansion of social housing as a non-market-based housing has become a smaller and smaller percentage of available housing. And it's really important that, along with rent controls, that we have enough social housing where rent is geared to income, not exceeding 30% of household income. Most of the people that we work with are dealing with 70-80% of their incomes going to rent, and many are dealing with rents that are more than their total income put together. We also know this month that there was a small increase at the beginning of the month in the minimum wage, raising it from $15 to $15.35. The Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives has identified that a living wage in Saskatchewan ranges from $18 to $19, so we're well below that. But even beyond that, relating it to the question of rent, CCPA also found that in order to afford a one-bedroom bachelor suite and be able to meet all your other most basic needs, you would need to have a minimum wage of over $22 an hour in Saskatchewan's major cities. One example of the gap is that the amount that a person would now receive a minimum wage working full-time in Saskatoon would be $31,000 a year. A living wage is $41,000 a year, so there's a $10,000 gap between a living wage and a minimum wage in our major cities. I want to conclude with the issue of childcare, which is another right recognized under international law, along with quality and affordable housing, adequate income security, and a living wage. We know that Saskatchewan has been a childcare desert with many deserts within it, that Saskatoon has the highest level, or it has the least childcare coverage of any major city in the country, and Regina ranks number 3, and this is a problem obviously throughout rural Saskatchewan as well. Obviously we need to increase the number of licensed publicly subsidized childcare spaces with properly trained and justly paid staff. We also need to make sure that the province is renewing the joint federal-provincial childcare agreement for $10 a day childcare. Without that, we're going to see a continuing decline in the availability and the affordability of childcare in Saskatchewan. We have a saying on the door of the Anti-Poverty Ministry that the existence of poverty is shameful, to be poor is not. Poverty is not an individual choice, it's the result of public policy and huge economic inequality in this province. The upside of that is that because poverty has been legislated, we can also legislate an end to poverty. We can have a more just, equitable, and humane Saskatchewan. What's needed is the public and the political will to make that happen. Together, let's make that happen. Let's make poverty history. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Up next is Crystal on behalf of Childcare Now.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks Peter for all your introductions on all of that. My name is Crystal Lewis and I'm speaking today on behalf of Childcare Now in Saskatchewan, which is a local provincial chapter of Childcare Now, a national organization. I'm honored to have been invited to speak here today by the Anti-Poverty Ministry, who is a member of our provincial chapter, which is a relationship that makes perfect sense given the shared values of our two organizations. We advocate for affordable, high-quality, publicly funded and delivered childcare because we know that it is vital to reducing poverty, not just for children, but for everyone. Access to affordable childcare allows parents, and especially women, to do things like be more involved in their community and culture, go to school, or participate in the workforce. It also sets children up for success by ensuring they have access to important social supports, learning opportunities, and other things like nutritional meals, something as simple as that, to help them thrive and develop. As Peter mentioned, we have the highest number of children living in childcare deserts across the country. And while the first few years of the $10 a day agreement, which started in 2021, has greatly reduced fees for parents accessing licensed childcare, it still has a long way to go in meeting space needs, other things like releasing a wage grid for the workforce. So there's a lot of, there's some clear sustainable plans for that, and many other pieces that they have simply not delivered on. The provincial government is much further behind than some of its counterparts across the country when it comes to space creation, only accomplishing a fraction of the new spaces it promised, despite what they may claim. I'll put diplomatically there. It has also hindered the ability for existing centre to stay open with its poorly designed funding formula, which has been widely criticized all across the province. It is disproportionately impacting centres in rural and inner city neighbourhoods, including Little Memories Daycare in North Central, which just recently closed its doors because of a failure to provide emergency funding. Exactly. People all across Canada have been advocating and fighting for a national childcare system for decades, and I'm sure some of you have been part of that fight for a long time. And we finally got some momentum going with this program. It will take time for this for the $10 a day program to reach its full potential, and the program will need to evolve along the way to better meet the needs of families. It's just getting started. But we can't let this province slack off and not take it seriously. They don't get to claim to care about childcare. We're dragging their feet and creating more problems. There's simply too much at stake. Childcare Now Saskatchewan has been working to coordinate efforts across the province and keep this and other important anti-poverty advocacy issues in the public eye and the media, and we look forward to continuing this important work alongside and in solidarity with great folks like all of you here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Crystal. Up next is Chair Mtembu.
Oh, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Peter. Thank you to all the leadership at Anti-Poverty. My name is Chair Mtembu. I'm a community organizer living in the heritage community here. And over the last couple of days, I've had the privilege of cooking with local youth at the Thompson School with the Thompson Food Collective, making the soup that was served here today, all from donations from the S.A.I.D Society with Guru Nanak. An example of how mutual aid and how community works together endlessly and tirelessly together in solidarity. Today, marking this day to eradicate poverty in our communities, collectively, we can see the need for our Rainbow Coalition to form, to continue to work together as pro-Palestinian and anti-austerity movements across the globe are gaining traction. This next week on Wednesday, there's going to be an opportunity for us to tell our government that both this austerity measures that are crippling our communities are no longer going to be tolerated, as well as doing business with Israel is not going to be tolerated by the working class across Treaty 4. So again, I thank you all. It's been a treat to feed you with the students, and I look forward to continuing to work in this community to uplift, to end poverty, and to live in the dignity and respectful life that Treaty people deserve. So thank you.
Thank you, too. Next is Della Rogers.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak here. I'm here on behalf of Unifor. We are the largest private sector union in Canada. We have 320,000 members, and we work in all sectors of the economy. We are very proud to call ourselves not just a workplace union, but a social justice union. And on that matter, I would like to share our statement of support for today. On this International Day for the Eradication of Poverty, themed Ending Social and Institutional Maltreatment by ensuring respect and effective support for families, we reaffirm our commitment to building a society rooted in dignity, fairness, and compassion. Poverty is never just about income, it's about systems that neglect, isolate, and punish those who need the support the most. Too often, families experiencing poverty are treated with contempt rather than empathy, facing barriers in housing, healthcare, education, and social services that deepen inequality instead of addressing it. This year's theme reminds us that respect must be at the heart of every institution and policy. Families deserve support, not judgment. Every parent should have access to affordable childcare, paid leave, and stable employment. Every child should grow up with secure housing, food on the table, and access to quality education and health care. Ending poverty means confronting the maltreatment that comes when systems fail to value care work, underfund public services, or deny people their rights. It means strengthening social safety nets, investing in community-based supports, and ensuring families have the resources that they need to thrive. Respect for families begins with decent work. Through collective organizing and action, labor unions have long been and continue to be the primary drivers ensuring that workers are paid fairly, labor laws are strengthened and protected, and public programs are adequately funded to promote healthy communities and economic and social justice. Poverty is a policy choice, and so is justice. We call on all levels of government to act with urgency to expand access to income supports, improve housing affordability, and end the punitive practices that harm those that are already struggling. On this day, we stand in solidarity with families everywhere, demanding a Canada where no one is left behind and every family is treated with dignity and the respect that they deserve.
Thank you, Della. Up next is Miranda.
Hello. Thank you for inviting me to speak, Peter, and Anti-Poverty Ministry. I recently read a statistics that said the population of Canada, 30.7% of men are living in poverty. Our women are 35.5% living in poverty. I'm one of them. And when I think of myself, I'm lucky I have family and friends. But what about those other people? I live downtown for the last year now, and a lot of people don't like to come down here. And they're uncomfortable because they feel unsafe. I think what you're uncomfortable with is the poverty. You're not unsafe. These people aren't going to hurt you. I'm really exhausted of seeing a lot of my own people huddled in bus shelters in thin blankets. I'm really tired of talking to senior women who can't find shelter because they need to keep that emotional support pet with them because they got stranded. Their car broke down. They got stranded here and the shelter can't take them in. They need their pet. That's their family. And I also think of a lot of the young people out here, and a lot of them are aged out from foster care, and we never help them. So just next time you come, if you ever come downtown again, just think, that is somebody's child, that is somebody's mother, that is somebody's father, that is somebody's brother, maybe somebody's grandma or grandpa. Thank you.
Thank you, Miranda, and thank you to all the speakers today. There's media here, so anyone that's speaking or has things to share, obviously, feel free to answer questions and talk. And then the event that people were just at is going to proceed around 1:30. So I think this is the time that we can talk and keep talking about these things and have community in this moment, and then we can kind of rejoin at that event later. So thanks, guys.
Oh, yeah. Okay, just now time to talk.
What's you standing over here all by yourself for?
I just love behind the people.
Oh, I see. Hiding behind everybody.
I like listening sometimes. I don't like speaking. I like listening to people. I speak sometimes, but I like people. Sometimes I just like sitting back and hearing people talk.
Yeah. I'm gonna go walk around, see what everybody's talking about.
Walk around and see what everybody's
Here, Peter, Peter back here.
So one of the things that we're looking to develop through the course of the rest of the day is strategies moving forward that take seriously the concerns of people living in poverty.
Not too bad, how are you?
Thanks a lot.
What's up there, Rebecca? Scott? Yeah, you bet. You're what?
But just standing around waiting to go back to the church, so the church basement. So have about half hour. So
This guy's been with the family.
I wanted to come say hi. How are you doing?
They're trying to take something from me, and I told them straight. I said, you know what? I said, you picked the wrong person to tell you this to. Yeah, you know what? Again.
The rest of the speeches and the conversation today. A couple of reminders. There's still the red petitions, so you have the red control petitions. So if you did get a chance to do that, then feel free to grab that. If you're kind of curious about whatever, feel free to ask Peter. Florence is here as well, I know she's been a part of it, so people kind of ask what that's about. Also, I was going to say, there's still food, there's still drinks left over, so there's still some muffins and stuff. Feel free to eat those up, because they're just going to sit there and get staler and staler. I think also keep in mind for the questions, we're not going to do that till after this, but just that I'm not sure if everyone got a chance to kind of finish their conversation on the questions from the audience. If you guys still have a conversation for that to go, we'll have points after the speeches and Q&A to keep having that conversation, so there's more to write down and kind of share after that. So just keep that in mind if you're kind of worried you get to wrap that up by the end of the morning. But with all of that said, thanks for coming to the rally earlier, and we'll get started with the speeches. So first is going to be Miranda, and so the next speaker is Miranda Hannes. Hannes. Hannes sounds kind of crazy. It came out of my mouth and I was like, son's name is Taboo, and people say Taboo, and I'm like, what kind of person names their kid Taboo? Miranda Hannes is a graduate from the Indigenous Communication Arts program at the First Nations University of Canada. This led to her role as a broadcast news reporter for the Mississippi Broadcasting Corporation, covering news topics affecting First Nation communities across Saskatchewan. During COVID, Miranda added creative writing to her skills with her membership to the Canadian Mental Health Association, Writing for Your Life group, and submitting poetry to Transition magazine. Outside of journalism, Miranda used her communication and problem-solving skills to contribute to community building and anti-racist grassroots organizations such as the Writing Relations Regina Circle. These days, Miranda is the editor and writer for the CMHA Saskatchewan Division newsletter, as well as a presenter with the partnership program at the Schizophrenia Society of Saskatchewan, where she tells her story of lived experience with a mental health diagnosis. An officer member of the Standing Buffalo Dakota Nation and longtime Regina resident, please welcome Miranda.
Thank you so much. I realized that was a little long. Everyone had such short intros, and I'm like, oh, I should have shortened that. I had a shirt I was going to wear today because lived experience with mental illness and all, and it says, my anxiety has anxiety. But I couldn't find it. So, hello, my name's Miranda. All my life I've suffered from being too emotional and oversensitive, a lot. First I was diagnosed with depression, followed by an anxiety diagnosis. Somewhere in between I used alcohol and gambling to cope with loss and grief. But what really explained my behavior was being diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. Borderline personality disorder is defined as a long-lasting mental health problem that causes difficulty regulating or handling emotions or controlling impulses. This means I'm a highly sensitive person who reacts with intense emotion to small changes or perceived rejection or abandonment. Now add that to trying to deal with the system, bureaucracy, banks, social services, anything like that, and you just, it makes it just intense. Being emotional doesn't necessarily coincide with knowing what one is feeling. I've never taken rejection well. For example, after a really angry disagreement with a friend, I tried to walk home to Regina for a Moose Jaw. It took me 4 hours to calm down on the highway in the dark to realize it was a really, really irrational, stupid, and dangerous thing to do. I experienced childhood trauma. I am an only child and I was left home alone a lot at a young age. This led me to being apprehended by social services at age 7. My 2 years in foster care were a nightmare. I learned very unhealthy coping skills. I learned to tell people what they wanted to hear in order to survive the system, to avoid being hit, to avoid a move to another foster home. By age 9, I was returned home, but less than 6 months later, I lost my mother to liver disease due to alcoholism. Alcoholism caused by her own trauma from being in residential school. This also makes me a survivor of intergenerational trauma. Growing up, I always had a level of self-awareness, survival instincts, and resourcefulness. I always sought out answers when it was a high school guidance counselor, Alateen, or other 12-step programs. But I also just wanted to be liked. Afterward, my family doctor said something like, "You're not going to do that again, are you?" Oops, I missed something here. When I was 17, I overdosed on anti-anxiety pills and beer because I didn't know how to deal with a breakup. I showed up at the hotel where my ex went for coffee, and I handed him the empty pill package. I passed out and paramedics arrived. I was taken to the emergency where they pumped my stomach. Afterward, my family doctor said something like, "You're not going to do that again, are you?" To which I replied, "No." Instead of admitting me to the hospital, she sent me to home with a referral to Child and Youth Services for counseling. When I got back home, my stepmom was really mad, and my dad was mostly pissed off at the ambulance bill. I felt a lot of shame as well as resentment towards my parents for this reaction. My first stay in the psychiatric unit was just before my son's first birthday. I went Christmas shopping, and at the mall, I started crying, and I just couldn't stop. I went home and started laughing hysterically, in addition to crying. I don't remember much after that. I was released 9 days later with a prescription for antidepressants. As a young single mother, I was always working and going to school and raising my son. I put a lot of pressure on myself to get ahead and make something of my life because I had to work, because that's how my dad had raised me. So I did. And I went to school, and I worked a part-time job, and I struggled. Back in the 90s, I chose a new education path in Brandon, Manitoba, far from home, far from friends and family supports. I found resources like food banks and churches. I worked at a shelter, so I was never lacking for a meal. But I couldn't keep up with it all, and I crashed and burned again. There was a lot of poverty, but support in Brandon, and looking back on it now, I think it was because they had started to deinstitutionalize the Valley Center for people's mental illness diagnoses. I returned home to Regina to help my ailing parents in 1998. Jump to summer 2023. I'm living in a basement suite with my son. We had lived there for 9 years. And then our suite floods after a torrential rain. It wasn't that much water, but it's carpet. And did I have tenant insurance? Yep, I paid into tenant insurance. But did they cover me for water damage? Nope. Unfortunately, the landlord wasn't interested in pulling out the carpet. And I'm scared of mold in the walls, so it's time to move. And I'm aware of the trouble finding housing in Regina. But I think we're all familiar with those challenges. Worst case scenario, I'd sleep in my car if I had to. But thanks to a kindness of friends and family, I was able to stay with a friend in her place until I got back on my feet. I was lucky, I was fortunate to find housing downtown. It's small, but the landlady is terrific, and I found a place where I feel safe. Right now I'm coping much better. I listen to audiobooks or podcasts. I calm myself with breathing. I saw a psychiatrist who's prescribed medication and checked that I'm sleeping, eating, and staying active. I try to stay balanced with just enough social time with friends and recognize when I had enough of peopling and need some alone time. I recently went through the Your Recovery Journey with WRAP, the Wellness Recovery Action Plan at the Schizophrenia Society. This program is designed to increase self-awareness of symptoms. They also teach participants wellness tools and coping skills, not just pills. Most importantly, I'm continuing my dialectical behaviors therapy. I meet with a psychologist online as well as with a support group. DBT helps me accept how things are, moving forward physically and mentally, and providing me with skills to help me manage my life and a life worth living. I learned I could stop and think about my reactions and process my feelings. When I feel too emotional, I use my DBT skills. This can be as simple as a temperature change, like rolling down the car window, going for a walk outside, holding an ice cube, maybe grabbing a snowball out in the snowbank. I'm regaining my confidence, and though I still have bad days, I know it's just a moment, and I can work through it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Miranda. For the next speaker, it will be Della Rogers. Della has worked in the service industry for 35 years and has worked with labor activism for 10 years, including working as the president of Unifor Local 651 and as an executive member of Unifor's Prairie Council. Della is currently on the Employment Insurance Reform Committee, so for all of her great work and what she's about to share with us today, please welcome Della Rogers.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation to be here. I just want to say thanks so much to everyone who has shared already. I've learned so much from everybody. It's a real privilege to be able to be here. I listen to those titles and they sound like, wow, I'm doing a whole lot. But in reality, I was a teen mom with a worthless, learn now, a worthless GED grade 12. But first and foremost, I'm a worker and I'm a leader who's trying to keep my members above water. And I'm here today to talk about how a job, 2 jobs, even a union job, doesn't guarantee that you're going to make it anymore. Because workers aren't making it either, not anymore. So I'm going to talk some about that today. Actually, I'm going to talk a lot about it. I'm a certified bartender. As you heard, I work nights. After 35 years on the job, I'm still not guaranteed a 40-hour stable work week. And I'm at the top of my game. I do earn a living wage now after 35 years. I can almost feel secure because of the wage we've managed to bargain in our collective agreement for my position. But that financial anxiety of the low-wage worker is still there because of precarious scheduling practices. It's something we've not managed to bargain away, not in any contract. And I don't see it getting better. So because I'm number 2 in seniority in my department, 40 hours goes to the most senior, not me. and I get scheduled what's left depending on the occupancy. So I go to work praying for it to be busy so I can make tips to make up for the hours that I'm missing. Sorry, you can see GED. I'm on paper, not tech. I also have another fear over my head every day. If it's slow, not only do I not make budget, but my job or pieces of my job can disappear. So fear number 2 is prolonged slow periods, which would result in me having to go look for a second job at my age. And honestly, one of my members last night just got word after 10 years of employment, he's now going to be laid off for 2.5 months. So I go to work every night praying for it to be busy. That's what we all do. So I get hours, I get tips, and my job continues because despite all of this, I'm one of the many white-knuckling workers. That's my story. Next to me is my coworker. She's number 3 in seniority. Only guaranteed hours right now are Saturday and Sunday, and she needs it to be busy to access any further hours. Something she does once in a while, and sometimes she doesn't. So again, despite the good wage we bargained for her as well, and 6 years on the job, she too does not go, doesn't live free of that constant financial anxiety. In my bargaining unit of 100 people, only about 20 get to work full-time with any consistency to have what most lower wage workers consider a luxury, 1 job. I worked 2 jobs for well over 25 years. So from our unit alone, there are 80 workers that are trying to juggle 2 jobs and working back-breaking schedules to survive because of 2 things: disgustingly low minimum wage and precarious scheduling. We have to bargain wages in our sector off of the provincial minimum wage, so that disgustingly low wage keeps our wages low as well because we get percentage increases based on that. Our housekeepers pretty much all have a second job. They work physically demanding shifts. They clean 16 rooms a day with approximately 20 minutes to get them done. Then they go to work at 4 p.m. cleaning offices, getting home to their families around 8 p.m., an average of an 11-hour day. Our cooks, who are mainly young men, they work 8 to 3 somewhere, anywhere. Then they come to work at the hotel 3 to 11 when they can consistently come to work at the hotel 3 to 11. But again, because of how precarious our work is, they have to hold this 16-hour day schedule just in case, right? When it's slow, you need one or the other of those jobs to be 8 hours in a day. Most of them are supporting their families alone because of the lack of affordable childcare is keeping the majority of their spouses from being able to contribute to the income. So these young men, they work 7 days a week. They never take full vacations. They never take full days off to try to provide stability for families that they never see. And this is everywhere. I'm telling you about the 80 workers I personally know, and they are working one job. They're working one job that has a good wage, our wage, right? So think of all the workers you see out there that are working minimum wage, right? Even at 70 hours a week, you would never ever make it, which is Peter's stats said earlier, right? And this is what has happened to workers from COVID. It was starting before, but it wasn't quite as bad. When business started opening after COVID, they offered precarious work like I described, which of course created their labor shortage because people get caught up when one or the other of these employers suddenly wants more hours from you. Sorry guys. And you can't accommodate that. So workers will have to call in sick to one of the jobs or they quit one, only to be let down again when the employer's full-time need disappears. Just like Canada Post, to utilize rural post offices better, have letter carriers do things like senior check-ins and other various ideas like making post office electric vehicle charging stations, postal banking for remote communities. Nope. They haven't gone to the bargaining table for 2 years. Now they're crying broke in the press with top-heavy wages, and I'm talking big top-heavy wages. There's VPs in Canada Post that make $450,000 a year because they have a private chef at their head office in Canada Post. Just saying, they're so poor, right? Because they too, I'm thinking you guys could just go for lunch. Because they too want to reduce services, reduce their labor force, and bring in more precarious work, more half and quarter jobs. They want to they're really pushing to bring in language with workers with no protection. So that's why those workers are trying to fight back. They're trying to fight back for all of us to protect, you know, one of the few places a worker can still get a steady job. Remember, I think you guys are from the families that, oh, hey, my son got a job at Canada Post. Yay, you're thinking, hey, that's going to be great, right? My son-in-law is one of those people. And in case anybody doesn't know about the sacrifices that a striking worker is making, they are kicked off of their benefits. They sacrifice their full-time wage for $250 a week to walk a picket line. So when you see a striking worker and the employer painting them as greedy, please understand that strikes are a last resort. If a worker is on the line, they are not greedy, they are desperate. I'm a labor activist, so I'm quite obviously in this moment bringing the labor perspective to this gathering. What I have described is the struggle of the low-wage worker to white-knuckle it, and now the union workers are starting to white-knuckle it also. Now, what happens when one piece of this juggling act for workers gets dropped, such as a sick day? Okay, so many workers are juggling pieces of jobs. They don't have benefits or they have inadequate benefits like ours. We get sick pay, we get 6 days, but the first 2 are unpaid to discourage sick calls. So a common cold at our work comes with a $100 price tag, minimum. Never mind an injury. Very likely, right? You're doing physical labor, 70 hours per week, right? So what happens if that creates a disability? We all know the so-called safety nets are shit. And when you're barely making it, working all the time, how the hell are we supposed to survive on a portion of an already inadequate income? I have had a repetitive strained shoulder injury that I've been working with on painkillers for 6 years because I can't afford to heal it. I can't survive on workers' compensation because I need tips to survive, and a portion of what I earn hourly, not happening. I live alone, like there's just no way. Low-wage workers also can't afford to retire. We get CPP checks of $200 and $300 a month because it's based on our hourly wage, right? OAS is based on income, and our employers, well, no pension for us, like seriously. We will all work long into our 70s. And now we also have garbage, exploitative gig work that are undercutting workers even more. Now businesses not even have to employ a delivery worker, give them hours, and make them commit to something. Thanks to app work, they can access a larger and larger pool of financially insecure people that they can summon at will. Workers with no access to benefits, no CPP credits, nothing at all. Not even something as simple as a reference to rent an apartment. And you know how many people skip and this and that and all that stuff, right? All of those people, none of them have any protection. They're not considered employees, actually. They have to be available and they have to work certain hours, but they're all independent entrepreneurs. So these are some of the realities of the low-wage worker. Actually, in all honesty, just about any worker that's not part of the executive level, it seems this is what's happening. We are surviving. I mean, we are working, and that in itself these days can be seen as a privilege, but we are scared. We're scared too. We're scared of getting sick, even for a day or two. We are absolutely terrified of injury or disability, the kind that painkillers cannot manage. We are scared of aging, because then how are we working, right? We are very scared of this new economy that's happening right now. We are afraid of governments that attack workers, like the one we've got right now. We are scared we're going to lose more and more stable jobs, like Canada Post, right? Like that's a big scary thing for working people. And like everybody, we're scared of rent increases because most of us, we don't own homes. I mean, some do, but the majority, if you're on your own, you're not owning a house. And most of all, we're scared that because all the misinformation out there that demonizes us, demonizes our struggles, that at some point even working will not keep a roof over our head because people will have been seduced by the propaganda of the employer class and will have supported all the attacks on us, just like the public is doing right now to the CUPW workers out there on the line. They're being hated right now for trying to do what's right, protecting a universal public service. And if we as workers lose these fights, then what hope does anyone have of surviving? Honestly, we're fighting for something that is supposed to be lifting people out of poverty, but as I described to you, it's no longer getting the job done. All of us, I told you from our experience, I've heard others today, right? That's why I'm here. I'm here to connect and try to start working together with other organizations such as this one. I'd like to share some of the work that we do as a union. As I said, I'm part of Unifor. I'm pretty proud of the things that we do. We really try hard to make the world a better place, and as I said outside, not just in our workplaces. My local, the one that Elsie and I belong to, for example, we have negotiated with our employer 80 hot meals once a month on a Sunday that we pick up and usually serve at the Friendship Center. We've been doing this for 3 years and I don't see it stopping. When fire closed the Friendship Center, we drove around looking for our neighbors and brought them dinner still. We also regularly secure funding in different amounts to support the center. In 2021, in Winnipeg, Unifor commissioned our members, we have shipbuilding members, and donated a boat to help the community search the Red River for missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirited. In our union, locally and nationally, officially recognizes today with our membership across the country. I'm going to read the statement again that I read at the rally for those of you that weren't there. So it communicates our union's work and position much better than I do. On this International Day for the Eradication of Poverty, themed Ending Social and Institutional Maltreatment by Ensuring Respect and Effective Support for Families, we reaffirm our commitment to building a society rooted in dignity, fairness, and compassion. Poverty is never just about income, it's about systems that neglect, isolate, and punish those who need support the most. Too often, families experiencing poverty are treated with contempt rather than empathy, facing barriers in housing, healthcare, education, and social services that deepen inequality instead of addressing it. This year's theme reminds us that respect must be at the heart of every institution and policy. Families deserve support, not judgment. Every parent should have access to affordable childcare, paid leave, and stable employment. Every child should grow up with secure housing, food on the table, and access to quality education and healthcare. Ending poverty means confronting the maltreatment that comes when systems fail to value care work, underfund public services, or deny people their rights. It means strengthening social safety nets, investing in community-based supports, and ensuring families have the resources they need to thrive. Respect for families begins with decent work. Through collective organizing and action, labor unions have long been and continue to be the primary drivers ensuring that workers are paid fairly, labor laws are strengthened and protected, and public programs are adequately funded to promote healthy communities and economic and social justice. Poverty is a policy choice, and so is justice. We call on all levels of government to act with urgency to expand access to income supports, improve housing affordability, and end the punitive practices that harm those already struggling. On this day, we stand in solidarity with families everywhere, demanding a Canada where no one is left behind and every family is treated with the dignity and respect they deserve. And just to expand a little bit on this of what we do, one of the things that we do is we have created an entire policy document recommendation to the federal government for EI reform. This is a file that I have actively been working on for years because we were the CERB workers when COVID happened. And we lobbied the government strongly for EI reform. We've gotten only one thing in 3 years, however, I'm sure that's no surprise to anyone here, but they will be setting up regional boards of appeal in cities all across Canada. And I've been selected to be one of the workers' advocates on one of those appeal boards in Regina, and I can proudly say that my job will be to figure out how to get EI into the hands of as many people as I possibly can. So I'm really looking forward to beginning that work.
you know what, all I'm the rest of them to say thank you so much for the platform that I had today so I could share what we do and connect with everybody, and I hope we can continue to bridge gaps, work together, organize, and get stronger. Thank you.
Thank you, Della. The last speaker, official speaker, I'm sure people can talk after, but official speaker of the day is Nairn McKay. Nairn McKay has been an activist in many ways for most of her life. In 1974, she was in grade 7 and was 12 and 3/4 years of age. The 3/4 was very important to her at the time. When Nairn's teacher announced there would be a meeting of a new group called Friends of the Handicapped, not a name we'd use today. Through them and another organization, which I'm not going to name because it's even more outdated than the last term, she became involved in the movement for deinstitutionalization. This early experience has become oddly relevant 50 years later. Throughout most of her life, she's been poor in one way or another, and this has shaped her political and ideological outlook in many ways. Please welcome Nairn McKay.
You know, that's a very odd bio to write. I'm sure you'll agree. Reaching back into your childhood. Well, not so odd, but I have a reason for that. Do you notice some of the news around the institutionalization? Who here has not recently said, I can't believe I'm still protesting this shit? This is 50 years ago. 50 years. And I can tell you from experience with other issues, we've had victories, we've had failures. No victory is ever final, no failure is ever final. Take that with you. Take that with you. And it makes me tired to say that, but it's also encouraging. It's very important. Some of the work, all of us here, there's a person from the early days of film, Erich von Stroheim. You'd have to be a really serious film nerd to know who he is. But anybody who does knows him as the butler in Sunset Boulevard. But he was a producer, a pioneer in writing and everything like that. But my favorite observation of his was France and America, stating the obvious, have very different attitudes to art and artists. In France, if you have ever produced a work of art, you're an artist. Your whole life, you remain an artist. In America, it's, what have you done for me lately? Right? And sometimes it feels that way around activism, because in my life, there's over that time, there's been activism throughout, but there have also been periods where I've had to step back for survival reasons, for health reasons, or that. But if you have ever been an activist, if you think like an activist, you are an activist. So don't let that discourage you. If you need, in fact, I was very anxious about speaking today because this is my first sort of official act of activism in what, 4, 5 years, due to a number of health issues and individual battles and getting medically, just icky stuff that I'm not going to go into in detail because we'd be here all week. Let's just say if you're able to be consistently active all your life in activist space, that is an incredible privilege. And most of us don't have that. So I do appreciate being able to come and talk about it. Another thing I told myself, my my body's changing because he's taking care of mine. And I put pants on I hadn't worn in a while. I discovered they're a little too big for me. So I feel a little self-conscious about that, which is ridiculous. Amelia Earhart was always very self-conscious about her legs. I sometimes think, oh my God, the things she could have accomplished if only she had nice legs. Is a lot of the things that keep us from acting aren't that important in the end. We just act and we share and do what we can. I have a segue, I've just somewhere lost it here somewhere. Now, and I mean, I see some of the usual suspects here. I'm grateful to see you. I see some people I haven't met before, also great. But one of the things that I kept stumbling over is, what do we mean by first voice and lived experience? We're having this, we know what it means. We know it's people who have lived experience or coming and talking about their experiences, but what does it mean? What do we do with that? Yesterday, one of the side quests that distracted me a bit was that there's a First Voice occupational therapy group called Look. They're a film project. People with mental health. You were there. No, you weren't there. You were there. Yeah, you're familiar with the program. In fact, CMHA has done a great deal of leadership in First Voice and self-advocacy and things like that. We would do well to look at that model. Robert Hughes, not the one most of us, Bob Hughes, that most of us know here. They're different. There are lots of Bob Hughes and Robert Hughes. It's a little awkward. But Robert Hughes participated in the program and made a short film about homelessness. And it's kind of First Voice, but it's also, I think about gaze, the concept in art and film of gaze. Who is looking? Who is watching? And who is it for? We have to think about that. So you want us to come to your table, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you do need to see that that's what's happening and understand that. Is that what we mean by First Voice? And how do we get to something that we're all happy with? Something that addresses those, because that is intrinsically a power imbalance. And one of the goals is give us all the capacity to stand up. Sometimes people speak for us as a protective thing, and there is a role for that. I mean, Lord knows, someone was asking me about it. I ran a page, a Facebook page, that had been called Impact Poverty Regina, even though it wasn't really well integrated. We got up to, 3,000 members on the page, which is nice. But I kind of shut it down because of health issues, but at the same time, I had to apply for assistance, and the eligibility review unit paid me a visit to ask me about this page. I was kind of sure that was an attempt at intimidation. But I said, okay, well, why are you asking me about this? Oh, well, you might be earning some money. Yeah. I would love to get my hands on some of this activist money. That'd be kind of cute. So the page still exists under EPN and Poverty Now, but I haven't done anything for the past year. So, but it's still there. I haven't decided when I want to do it. But individual efforts are great. Social media is kind of a force multiplier. But so much what I see in activist space is activists doing good work on their own and trying not to get in each other's way. Good, but limited. Now, the other handicap we need advocates, of course. One of the things that I was trained in those early days of deinstitutionalization by what is now, well, briefly went through a transition period of Saskatchewan Association for the Mentally Handicapped, slightly better than its original name, but still not great. It's now what, Community Living? That had trainings for advocates, but I was a minor, so I became their first advocate cadet, so I could do pretty much any kinds of advocacy that didn't involve legal or professional liability. So it was good training and gave me good insights into a form of first voice, but not quite first space. Advocacy is so necessary, absolutely necessary, but the weakness of advocacy is it allows institutions to deal with people one at a time. We're not very strong one at a time. And yet ethically, advocates cannot share information with other clients about each other. Legal Aid ran into that in a major tenancy case in Toronto, where if they had been able to connect tenants with one another, it would have had some incredible results. But ethically and legally, they could not do that. So it would be metaphorically like a class action, but there is no such thing for purposes, for nonprofit organizations. So next we move on to taking a legal route where someone represents the class. But how long have you been working on the CPP case?
It's about, we could say 40 years since the policy came, 3 years.
3 years actively and 40 years that we've been an issue. Yeah. So that takes a long. Now, here's the entry. It's a model that has often worked. Like I said, no victory final, no defeat final either. Now, unions are having a rough time right now, but they're still the best model we have. Now, one weakness we have, there have been unemployed people's unions, very successful ones, very good models. They probably have the best training for activists, but not necessarily the best resources to open up to people outside the union. But that is something to look at, to build collective action and allyship, to open that training. I know Unifor has, from time to time, gone into that area. I've been involved with Unifor when they've made those efforts over time. Again, over the past 30 or 40 years. Highland Center has proposed that as a model. IWW just doesn't have the people or the resources. So the formal unions might want to take a look at opening up training to community members, to poor people of all stripes, and that would certainly be an advantage on the EI campaign. And to look for common word. I have a Swiss cheese lose memory still from my health issues, so I am getting it back, but not completely. Coalition? That's not really the word, but it's close enough. So that seems to be the most promising model locally right now for gathering, validating, and utilizing anti-poverty first voice. So that's, oh yeah, back to deinstitutionalization. So way back when, Glenda Jackson did my favorite eulogy of Margaret Thatcher ever. Okay, it is on topic, honest. She basically talked about, well, I used to tell the tale of my involvement with the deinstitutionalization movement as a cautionary tale about being careful what you wish for. Asylums were closed. That was a good thing. We didn't imprison people or incarcerate people with addictions, or we did less of it. Our mental health issues. Weyburn closed down. A whole bunch of things that on the face of it were good because we wanted care in the community. Valley View Center closed down. Again, care in the community was what was hoped for and expected. As many of you know, that's not exactly what happened, right? The reason we had this quote unquote success, even triumph it felt like at first, was it was seen as a budget measure. This is how we can save money. We've got better drugs now, better ways to treat people, and the promise of people being able to live in the community. And that's part of how homelessness started becoming a thing. And then I thought, I started seeing, first I was seeing an NDP mayor in Kelowna, BC, saying, well, we should, deinstitutionalization was a mistake, closing down the hospitals was a mistake, we should be throwing homeless people into the hospital. This was only a few years ago, and it's just like, no, deinstitutionalization has not failed. It just has never been adequately supported. But the message is still deinstitutionalization has failed. And I'm hearing that on the bloody left too. And I am so pissed off about it. And that is what happens when first voice is missing. Now, the real reason we have deinstitutionalization, or wanting reinstitutionalization, is the same reason we want privatization of nursing homes. During COVID, a gerontologist was asked, well, I thought this was a great health model for seniors. He says, no, really, it's just the realty developers that benefit. Another part of my story that around which around which I feel actual shame, personal shame, partly because I didn't understand what was going on. Again, things that seem random are often connected. It's not just an ADHD thing, it's true. I took on a writing contract for an American drug treatment company to write some curriculum for them to train their counselors on, at that time it wasn't AI-based, it was computer-based counseling support. What I wasn't aware was at the time, the Affordable Care Act started requiring that insurance companies fund addictions treatment. So there was an actual bonanza going on. Everybody was jumping into the business, whether they had qualifying adequate treatment models or not. This company was well financed. I was doing my due diligence because it was almost a year's income for me. A major health company, drug addiction treatment company, bought them out, and they also stole my coffee. I was left very broke when I was doing, at a time when I was doing okay, but also at a time my health was declining. I didn't have the energy or wherewithal, and that is a big part of the story of me having to step back from activist work. But now that bonanza is kind of over in the US. We don't have the big bucks for addiction treatment in the US, so guess what's happening now? You're not. Can you guess? You can guess. All of a sudden people are talking about, here's how we solve the homeless problem. Let's require drug treatment. And of course, we don't have the public health facilities to cover that. But boy, there are sure a lot of American companies that are interested. I sometimes argue with Florence about, knowing it's all connected, but, argue with about how important that is. But every once in a while, I have to admit, yeah, it's all connected. So this is one of the reasons that First Voice and self-advocacy and collective action are so important. You follow the money. People are getting wealthy of our poverty and our misfortune. And that's why unions can help. That's why advocates can help. But really, we need models where we're collectivizing and helping ourselves. And that's all I have to say.
Sister, I just want to comment on what you said, and I've been busy writing here, and I understand you are right. We do have some really powerful training. We have women's activist training, we have lobbying training, we have political action training. We have all this, so I'm going to make a commitment to you today from what I heard. Our local is going to draft a resolution for our Prairie Regional Council that's happening in May, and I will put that resolution to the floor and see if we can get some union training to provide union training to community activists to be able to create stronger coalitions.
Awesome, love to hear that. Thank you guys for speaking so much. Maybe one big round of applause for the three speakers this afternoon. So similar to this morning, we'll have a little Q&A period here. So obviously lots of different perspectives, different ranges of experience and kind of areas of focus from each of the speakers this afternoon. Is there anything that was said during these speeches or kind of things that kind of got you wanting to ask questions or contribute to the conversation at all? We'll do it probably the same way. So you can either raise your hand and yell from the table, or you can come up here to speak on the mic, or I can even repeat something if you just want to say something. But anyone have anything to add or ask?
I am very grateful you brought up the concept of forced treatment. This is a very, very serious issue.
50 years and I still can't believe when protesting this shit, right?
Yeah, I can see the sign. It's utterly ridiculous. And, you just don't know where to go with this because there's not enough, it seems like there's not enough people who want to get involved. I don't know.
And
what's happening.
even though we follow the money and we know what's going on, it's hard to it's hard to have people who are slowly coming to accept privatized healthcare to understand just what is so wrong with this. I mean, we're fighting the same fight over again. That's very tiring.
If you want to follow the money in one way, I have heard from 2 different police officers who kind of can't hear you. Oh, sorry. I heard from 2 different.
Yeah, hold on.
So, in the past week, by the way, I've heard from 2 different police officers who are kind of under the table with this stuff, that when they find someone that they need to throw in the, in the cells because they're drunk or they're high and they're worried about their health, they don't do that anymore because there's no more room in cells. What they do is take them to Pioneer Village. Does anybody know about this? Could you speak to that at all? Is there anything that you want to say about that? Why are they taking them to Pioneer Village? And this goes to
It's
follow the
because
money.
because of the risk that's involved now with offenders, they would call it. And they don't have the manpower anymore in cells, like downtown here, they don't have that anymore. So they hired somebody from mental health, social service. There's 2 workers there on 24/7, and then they deal with the people over there, and then 24 hours later, they will release them.
So where's the money going? Where's it coming from? That's all I have to say.
I happen to be able to speak a little bit to some of that just because I've been doing some research as part of just working with this, the kind of advocacy of the anti-poverty ministry, and just doing some community work in this. The Pioneer Village, it's like it's referred to as the Complex Needs Center there, and it is very interesting to see in action, because even working with individuals that I know that are picked up by police a lot and have to go to different places and stuff. It's one of those kind of tough ones. You can talk about the new shelter too in Heritage, the new nest, that like a lot of people that go there actually have like good things to say about it and stuff, because it's not recognizing the privatized, institutionalized like angle of it. So it's kind of tough too, because as an advocate working with people, some people do. You prefer that to cells in the same way sometimes you see with this forced treatment angle, talking about that, people prefer the idea of forced treatment, will take that over going to a jail cell or going to the prison system. Not everyone, obviously, not that that's right, but it's like it's very confusing as an advocate working with this stuff, that you can see the institutionalization and the privatization being like sold to the very people that are going to be victim or be subjected to like violence and treatment under it. So it's an interesting kind of element of the story, watching it unfold, because a lot of people, like you just announced, people know that has been operating for months and months and months. And I've met many people that have used that and frequent there a lot. Like I know someone in my life that like goes there once every 5 days maybe, kind of thing. And a lot of people here that are in the know don't really know what's going on there, don't understand what that is. So it's confusing to see that go on and just not have a lot of public knowledge of it, and then those ties and the strength behind that system grow. And then on the involuntary treatment, just the government on the closure of the shelter in Moose Jaw, that's ran through, I don't know if everyone saw that, but there was a press release from like the SAS government was there with Tim McLeod and Scott Moe, and they're talking about taking the shelter that's in downtown Moose Jaw out of the center for very NIMBY reasons, for saying it's bad for the business community, that's a tourist town, and there's been lots of talk from the MLAs and apparently residents in the business community that they don't want it there anymore. That's actually that shelter's ran through John Howard. So the local executive director, John Howard, like Sean Fraser and stuff, has spoken to the media speaking out against that, saying that they weren't a part of that conversation, all these different things. But during that press kind of scrum, they said that they are going to be exploring something similar to the Alberta model on the lines of privatized treatment or forced treatment here. So they've talked about it and alluded to it a lot, but this sounds like this fall session they're going to bring it up and going to put it on the floor. And I've been doing a lot of research into this, just here and just in my own time. The group, and maybe people know this, so maybe it's not as much of a revelation, but the ROSC groups, it's Recovery Oriented Systems of Care groups, is kind of like a
research kind of like think tank, maybe you could call it astroturf. I'm not exactly the right terminology for it, but this very large kind of conglomerate that is behind a lot of the push for recovery-oriented systems of care, aka the Compassionate Care Act in Alberta and other places, aka forced treatment or voluntary treatment. And they have worked with the Saskatchewan governments in consultation, and when advocates and activists looked into it and asked for freedom of information requests and stuff, the Sask government was very, very hesitant and trying to avoid disclosing kind of the relationship they had with these groups, or the money or the kind of transfer and exchange of information and stuff that's happened with these groups. As well as there's been multiple conferences and events, as well as the new Willowview Treatment Center outside Lumsden, or around Lumsden, that was opened up in the last year or two here, and it's been operational apparently for months now, almost a year I think, with inpatients. That's opened up through EHN, and EHN has ties to this recovery-oriented systems of care groups and this money, so I'm sure that's probably what you're alluding to, but I just thought it was worth kind of fleshing out just for people that that's the kind of following of the money, is that it's going to be coming to the floor of the legislative session this fall, and it's being developed and has been developed for a long time. But we're going to see this increase in a lot of different ways. Obviously, maybe with childcare, we're seeing privatization and those kind of things. So just thought I'd enter it just because I happened to be looking into that a lot recently. So, yeah. Florence? Suspense is building.
So I guess I want to know why there is more and more poverty and more houselessness. Things are getting worse and worse and worse, and it started in the last, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years maybe, or maybe the last decade or so. And the best answer I have to that is government policy. For example, the federal government got out of providing, I think it was 20,000 social housing units every year across the country. They stopped doing that in 1993. We did not have a houselessness crisis in Regina before that.
Yes.
And it's getting worse and worse and worse and worse. It was all passed down to the provincial government, who were closing down their units, selling them off, and so on. So that's one answer. Then at the provincial level, there's poverty level income assistance rates. Put those two things together, you've got increased poverty and more houselessness. And it seems to me that's where at least one or two places where we need to take action. Thank you.
Mirta, do you want to use the mic, or do you want to just holler from back there?
I'll shut it out. I think everybody can hear me. It's an observation. During the day, I have heard many voices. They're all really powerful, and I'm really grateful to have that opportunity to hear everybody and to share our thoughts. We had a really dynamic group of women while you were demonstrating over there, that we were sharing our own experiences as women, facing prejudice, facing the trauma from our own families and what the consequences have been in our lives. And we're planning to continue with that. So it's just something that is spontaneously happening. Now, my observation is, we were talking about first voices. Well, we're missing a few voices, and that voice is the voice of the seniors. That voice is the voice of the refugees and immigrants. We don't come here to this country to take your jobs. We came here because we needed it. And we needed to be protected because our lives were in danger, just say financially or political. But we don't hear from them. Why? Because these people, and we have two beautiful women who were here, they don't want to talk, they don't want to say anything, because they fear the repercussions and the consequences of saying in what situation they're living. Like, if you don't have a job, you don't have any budget. You don't have any income, no, you don't have any. And just to paint to the picture, when I came to Canada as a refugee, I had to pay back my ticket and my family ticket by the plane ticket. I have to pay for the clothes that they gave us because we came in winter. And as soon as we had a part-time job, my ex-husband because I was married to an unbeliever, not. So, no, really, I really love them and it was the best of both worlds, but really, we had to pay for everything. So those things that we have as free, right? Those things that we can to use your resources, and that we need to hear. Because I have encountered people who said, oh, I didn't know that. And that narrative is spread widely. That's what is happening. We talk about having coalitions, but what we need is allyship. And being an ally is not a noun, it's a verb. You need to be active. You need to do and demonstrate you're my ally, but don't speak for me. Just hold the space and help me to get there. That's what I wanted to say. It's just some of us have been here for 50 years already. And like Nere said, shit hasn't changed. And I'm tired of going demonstrating and writing and voicing this. Nothing has changed. And it's getting worse. I came from a system that it was fascist. And this is happening here, and I can see it just developing in front of my eyes. Don't think that there's freedoms that you think you have, they're permanent. It takes like an orange man from the south, a struggle with pain, and then celebrate it. I signed a decree or whatever, law. That's what they do. They're really well organized, they have the money, and we are really target, really is the target of Washington. That's it.
Well, if they're the fascists, then we must be the slowest.
Okay.
All right then.
Dad joke.
This is something I wanted to address with my next question. There's obviously an older population here with their old jokes and old humor. But I noticed being a young person in activist circles and just being active in community. So to speak for Youth Talk and I just know so many older activists that fight for similar things or asking or advocating for the same things they have been doing for the past 50 years. Black people in the States have been advocating against police violence and segregation in this for the last however many years, and they're still going to rallies and things like that to just argue the same things their grandparents did. So I just think from you now, you're the last one up here, but also to other people in the room, just even I was talking to another person outside during the rally about, how do we get more young people here? How do we get more young people informed? That's a big thing too. When I talk to people my age or younger, because I'm not even that young compared to my peers now, I'm just young in this room maybe. How do we get more people involved? What got you folks involved? You said you've been involved for a long time, you've been an activist. Just how do we get these rooms to have more young folks? How do we get rallies to be not only just attended by, but led by and organized by the younger class? Because that's obviously a lifeblood part of a lot of movements.
But you need to know where we came from. You need to hear from us, the older ones, who've been the activists forever, that we sit there, done that, and you need to learn that you're not alone. And learn from them. We need to connect these two generations. And that's what this system has done. It keeps us separated. Yes. Because we're tired, no. You get tired, but you go, regroup and you come back. And that young people need to learn from us. They need to learn what the struggles were. Alone, we're not going to do it. As the older generation know, because we have very many limitations. The brain still works, but the body sometimes doesn't, or vice versa. But they just need to learn from us. And we need to learn from them because you have a different view of things, and you know how to use the technical things that we don't really know. And that is a really big help.
Actually, I think I was an alien baby. But seriously, we've talked about all the failures because that's what the arc was like, but it's not actually an arc. We've had triumphs, we've had gains, but we've lost those gains. That's what we need to remember. There are triumphs, they're not permanent. There are successes. They're not, we can't think of them as permanent. We sometimes do. When things are good, we think that's going to go on forever. Even those small games, we've got to celebrate them. That gives us our rest, our ease, but we don't use that time to regroup and prepare for the failure that is inevitably coming. No success is final, and no failure is final.
What do you want to call it? There's a thing called team. There is no alternative. Every time we have a success, it registers, and we should revel in it because it's going there. They're like a spring with a lever on it. They never ever stop. They just don't give a shit about what's right or wrong. They don't care about what happens to people. They just want to win. And Trump is the ultimate in the win or lose mentality. You got people that will not talk to their neighbors, like frickin' Rwanda. They won't talk to their neighbors because they're of a different political stripe. I talked to people. I was in a Dollar Tree the other day, and I talked to an old friend. And as soon as the subject of Trump came up, different worlds. I could not believe that the people that support that guy. I can't believe that the America elected that guy. It just flattened me. And they are absolutely, what do you want to call it? Sociopathic. They just don't see the other person's side. All they see is their own. So they can do something dirty to us, legislatively or whatever the racial stuff is that they do down in the States. They can do that to us, and they can feel good about it. There's no I'm okay, you're okay. It's I'm okay and you're whatever you are. Bad, fucked, whatever. But they just don't care about the other person. They need a big dose of I'm okay, you're okay, transactional analysis. They need a big dose of that because they just don't have any of it. And it doesn't. And when we're fighting them, we're always like there's a lot of people that have to go there and make a deal with them, right? And I just feel sorry for some of the people that have to do that because there is no deal. They just don't give a shit. Okay, I'll go back to my old thing. You want old jokes? I've got one for you. You don't walk up to a Nazi with a club and reevaluate your position. You either stop them or you don't. And that to me, they have the same mentality as a Nazi. Maybe they're not killing as many people and stuff, but they have the same mentality. Not yet, yeah. They just don't care what the other person's opinion is. And they've divided it would take a spark to turn the United States into a civil war again. Yeah. I don't think the first civil war ever ended.
Yes, very true. Yes, sir, it has not.
I think that the racial tensions that they have in there are so cemented into the minds of the people that have them that they're just not going to change. They're not going to change.
Just before Hal just was going to say, just over here, and then you're next for sure.
I was just going to say there's a huge demonization of just the mere concept of empathy. You see it, it's really bad in the States, but it's here too. Like, absolutely, like, people you disagree with, the homeless, the unemployed, anyone who isn't deemed, like, worthy of, like, it's like, not only do you not have empathy for them, but, like, it's a bad thing to have empathy for these other people. Yeah.
There's understandings they don't have. Like the feeling of plenty. When you get your welfare check and you go and you spend it wildly, just for that one moment of feeling okay, that 1 minute of feeling like you got plenty, that feeling is worth suffering the rest of the month sometimes.
And you won't understand that unless you've been there.
Yeah.
Yes.
And just to the hat over here at the table here, I'm not sure if you saw something to
With the baseball hat?
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to back him up as you talk about the first voice and experience. I do have the first voice and experience of the war is not over. I was in New York for World Pride when it was there in 2019, and I was a registered nurse, authorized advanced practice. I'd go into the community, I'd just walk around, do an assessment. The feeling, the energy, the air, you smell it, you walk through it. They're not over it. The war is still going on for them. It's palpable. Sorry, I just wanted to back him up.
You know, what I always used to say, that after the Civil War was over, they just went like this, like a dog, and waited for it to blow over so they could come back out and be the same vicious animals that they were before.
The Jim Crow.
Oh, yeah, the Jim Crow. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Was there the end of the Civil War?
Yes, it was.
That was
Yes.
exactly the segue right
Yeah.
I can't hear you.
It was the birth of the Ku Klux Klan. And it was on stage. When they were told you can't do it anymore legally, they donned the robes, they put them on the stage.
And the
they started
NRA was,
acting out all their evil.
and the NRA was born.
Sadly, Saskatchewan had one of the biggest KKK infestations of anywhere in northern Canada.
I can hear the rush going on. The fields flowing softly on the plain.
Deb, right here.
This is my first experience with a group like this, although I've been very active on my nation and in the city here in smaller things. But, the numbers I heard from you today, Peter, was absolutely astounding to me. The concern I hear is how can we get more people, young people, seniors, disability, more groups together. These numbers I think should be shown on the television screen regularly, very regularly. And also the implications for our future generations, there should be some kind of statistics around that could show what's going to happen to our society if we continue on this trajectory.
Yes.
And I think that should be a huge way to inform the public, inform everybody. Because numbers matter, money matters. Anyways, that's just, I wanted to say that. I learned a lot here today, and I really respect everybody that offered their stories. It was very good. Thank you.
To back that up a little bit, there is so much misinformation out there. I've been doing very small community activist things since I was a teenager, and I'm now 71, so it's been a few years. And one of the biggest problems people that are activists have is getting the correct information out there, because there are so many organizations, so many agencies, and so many idiot people that don't understand, it's not within their sphere of experience, therefore it negates everything that we're saying because they don't believe it. We need to get the proper information out there and make it sound credible to these cretins.
We need to take people that are in the know to make up statements, and I'm sure this has been thought of. I'm sorry about it.
Yeah.
I mean, we need to have an enclave of people that go around to every single church and keep on hammering and hammering and hammering and hammering until they get it, that they're really choking the life out of a whole bunch of people because they just don't understand.
Not in their sphere of experience, they can't relate to it.
I think there is power in the storytelling too. It's good that we have the stats and the storytelling of people that have gone through, that they have the experience, because you don't understand it and you're not going to talk about it unless you went through it. And so the power of the storytelling is, priceless. It's just something that we learned from a long time ago in some of our cultures. That's how we learn storytelling. And we trust each other that way. Or don't, because no culture is perfect. But yeah, I just want to say another thing too, that maybe it's going to take you somewhere else. I'm outraged of what is going on in Gaza because the comparison I do, and I have in my mind, they did it to the First Nations, the indigenous people here in North America and in South America, they tried. That's what they're doing in Gaza. They are killing them, and now they said, oh, they're free. No, there's no freedom. They release them from jail. They stop killing many people, but what do they have? Nothing. They don't have the land. And that's really important for the culture to have your land, your language, your house. And these people don't have it. They've done the same here. Like, I was born after the World War, and everybody thought of the adults that I grew up with, oh, it's never gonna happen, but let's not forget. Well, I hate to tell you, we did.
You know,
because we never thought that it's gonna happen again, and it's happening. They made us believe, and we just thought, okay, we just defeat them. No, they just went away, and they're getting stronger and stronger.
There was another group of people that had the same attitude as the Israelis, acted in the same way, killed they killed more people than the Israelis, but they acted in the same way, and those were the Nazis.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure that an Israeli is not going to be pleased to be compared with the Nazis who committed the Holocaust. But they're doing the same thing. They're slaughtering innocent people.
I know.
They don't give a shit about the law.
It is Zionism, though.
It was a side conversation, sorry.
It is Zionism that you have, if you do the research how Zionism started and where the roots are. It's not Germany.
I know
it's
where
not the Nazis.
I know
and
where
they are denying it.
I know where the roots are.
When?
Millions of years ago, aliens came down to Earth and they planted one.
No, don't blame me. I'm an alien, so don't blame me.
But you're a legal alien. She's legal.
Space aliens came down to Earth and they planted one adversarial seed, and it has grown from there.
I don't believe it. They did their own experiments and they drew themselves out of proportion in here.
But here you go.
The one thing that's happening right now is AI is now taking over people's jobs. Yes. Thousands of people are going to and are losing their jobs because of AI. So it's only going to get worse.
And the corporations who have been thinning jobs out and getting rid of jobs so that they didn't have to pay the bulky weight of people's lives, they're going to be, what the hell's going to happen to people? They're going to have to be military against them. They're going to be so much unhappy because they're not going to be able to control it with political anything. They're just going to have to either give them enough money to live on, and that can be a slippery slope, or else jail them and house them and whatever. I don't know what the solution is.
So what are we doing about it?
Yeah, well, I think that's the conversation going on today, and that's kind of the whole reason. I think it's good to maybe finish up the Q&A around there, because I think in the last little bit there you can see there's a lot of things on the forefront of a lot of people's minds, a lot of things that people care about, and it's in some way connected to the larger conversation we had today around anti-poverty measures, around privatization, around employment and labor rates, around childcare, around social assistance, all those things. We're seeing an attack on a lot of these social and public services. I think it's really scary because it's part of a larger movement and a larger attack on all these other things that we hold near and dear to our heart, and to what we realize are our human rights that we're seeing being attacked. So I think it's important that we get together to have this conversation. Two things, or one thing that's good to remind if you're at the rally or Peter talked about it, but yeah, and he said it at the start of the day too, but just remember that on Wednesday at the opening of the Legislative Assembly at 11 a.m. we're going to have a anti-austerity rally, a lot of the similar kind of talking points from today, but held at the legislative, the Ledge building. So please come out there if you want to support similar things that we're talking about today. If you want to be present at the opening of the Legislative Assembly and have a voice and be able to maybe interact. I know NDP is talking about having some leadership present, or even maybe a part of some of the things calling for rent control and stuff, because they've been representing that. So that's important to be a part of. And then following that, just to be intersectional, you're just talking with Palestine and Gaza. There's going to be a Palestinian rally at 12 p.m. And that's directly following the rally on the same day at the same spot. So that's a good 2-for-1 that you can talk about the colonial systems here and how it has affected people and how it affects our policies and our legislation here. And then have a larger rally in just talking about Saskatchewan and Canada's complicity or kind of active involvement in what's going on in the genocide in Gaza and Palestine. So just intersectionality there that we can kind of recognize some of the movements going on in Regina. Then to follow that, I think that it's important, just because we're kind of finishing up here, that we can kind of break off into the final questions here, the little cue cards. So I think people were supposed to kind of talk about the blue and green ones, the one that started with what movie, but there's another pink card that I should be at everyone's table. If you guys are interested, I know the groups might have switched up a little bit, so you can feel like joining into another group, especially if there's only 2 at the table, maybe you have 4 at a table, if that, you guys are comfortable with that, or if that works. And just talk about the remainder of the questions that you didn't get to cover from this morning. And upon finishing that, if people kind of want to share what they have with the group today, or kind of share what the conversations were at the table, that's kind of an opportunity for that. And if you're not feeling it or whatever, please hang on to the notes, or if the record keeper kind of records in the conversation you've had, and that can hopefully contribute to the question that we are to ask at the end there: what do we do now, and what are we doing about it? This is part of that conversation, is a dialogue, but we need to leave this not just saying we had a conversation, but to form connections and form ideas and schemes and things like that. Like we saw Adele responding to there and around earlier about the resolutions we can make today that can lead to change tomorrow, kind of thing. So I think let's break off into our own groups and answer those questions, and we'll see where it goes from there.
I hope you enjoyed that. That was the first voice anti-poverty event. I had fun today, did you? Anyway, let's put this video up later. I'm on my way home. I'm down here. Oops. On the opposite side. Oops, can't see. On the opposite side of the South Power building. Someone's behind me, so